Bring my chainsaw in here, fix it right up.
That would be so nice.
Wouldn't it?
So we can see each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, your barber does a nice job on the back of your hair, but it's hard to talk to you that way.
Okay, Ken,
You ready?
yes.
Okay. We'll go ahead and call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Valley County. Today is December 8th, 2022. First thing we need to do is have a roll call. Cinda, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Caldwell,
Present.
Childs,
Here.
Roberts,
Here?
Freeman,
Here.
and Commissioner Thompson is excused for commissioner training in Boise.
Correct. Just Commissioner Thompson was duly elected as a county commissioner, and he will be leaving this P&Z commission and moving to the Board of County Commissioners. There are two openings that will be up. I think the commissioners plan to make that appointment probably before the first of the year.
Like Monday.
And so that'll be happening. A couple other housekeeping announcements I want to make. Those of you that may have not gotten the word, we have two withdrawals on the agenda this evening, both for CUP 2247, the cryptocurrency site. The applicant has withdrawn that application and will not be heard this evening. The second one that's been withdrawn is conditional use permit 22-48, Wolf RV rental site, and that has also been withdrawn by the applicant. This evening we have, just to go through our agenda just really briefly so you'll have a sense of what's going on. We have an extension request, planned unit development for Tamarack Resort, which will take some time. We have two final plats. We have another item that was tabled to this meeting, back from our October meeting. And then we have basically one new application and then some other action items after that. So with that, we'll go ahead and go review the minutes of November 10th and November 17th. Is there any motions or discussion on the minutes?
Make a motion that we approve the minutes from November 10th and November 17th.
I'll second.
Okay, there's motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries and the minutes are approved for November 10th and 17th. Okay, first thing under old business is Planned Unit Development 98-1 Tamarack Resort Update and Extension Request. We'll go ahead and hear a staff report at this time.
Mr. Chairman, we need to do ex parte and
Oh,
conflict of
yes.
interest.
Yes, is there any ex parte contact or conflict of interest?
I need to recuse myself due to a family member being in contract.
Okay. No?
No.
And before I jump into that staff report, when you get to the ones that were withdrawn, please announce them, accept the resignation. Because the one, they want me to read a letter into the record, and then you need to formally accept the withdrawal and put a condition on it, and we'll cover that when we get to
Okay,
it.
all right.
Okay.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you. So the staff report for PUD 98-1 Tamarack Resort Update and Extension Request. The applicant's Tamarack Resort 2 LLC being represented this evening by Scott Turlington, the president. Tamarack Resort 2 LLC will present a summary of the progress to date and planned improvements at Tamarack Resort for the next 3 years. All of those improvements include things that were previously approved. Information includes summary of original plan, progress made, explanation of what has yet to be completed, and then the updated completion dates. Specific topics include number of dwelling units, commercial space, public transportation and parking, utilities, employees and employee housing, ski mountain statistics, recreation such as winter golf, and summer activities. Application was made to Planning and Zoning on November 7th, 2022. Legal notice was posted in the Star News on November 17th and November 23rd. Potentially affected agencies were notified on November 8th. Property owners within 300 feet of the property line were notified by fax sheet sent November 10th. The site was posted on the property on November 22nd. The notice and application were posted on the Valley County website on November 8th. Agency comments received. Central District Health had no objection to a time extension. Neighbor comments received none. Listed Valley County codes here, 9-9-4 time for completion, which says that Extensions may be approved by the commission if it can be shown as necessary and in the public interest. And I emphasize commission because your recommendation will go to the Board of County Commissioners, which will not be a public hearing. It'll just be more of a for your information type of thing. Staff questions, comments, and recommendations. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the current extension to December 31st of 2025, and then make a finding that Tamarack Resort PUD has been established and will need no additional extension hearings, with the understanding that any changes or anything beyond current approvals will require additional hearings. And that's because they have their approval, they're well established. We're not going to revoke their approval. I mean, they are an existing ongoing concern. Staff believes this should be taken to the Board of County Commissioners for confirmation. Staff recommends that the P&Z Commission request updates every 3 years in front of the P&Z Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. And then there were attachments made. Everybody knows where Tamarack is, up on our screen here. There's been substantial development and improvements, ski hills. The PUD covered all of the property down into here. If there's any changes that need to be made, then they would have to amend their PUD, and that, of course, would take another public hearing. Since the staff report was completed, we received additional correspondence, and this will be Exhibit 1, and this is the boilerplate letter from the State of Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, and I'll let Scott address that. I know that they work very closely with DEQ on all of these items that they require. So that ends my staff report.
The questions for staff. I have probably two, Cinda, I'd like to ask. There has been discussion, I think we'll probably hear some updates from them this evening about expansion. And I know in the original planned unit development back in 1998, that was my first time on this commission.
Yes.
It covered a substantial amount of Forest Service ground as well in the plans on that. If they do an expansion on that, is that already part of the PUD? Or
No,
does
it's
that
not.
come back?
That was just discussion, and I believe that predated the West Rock application. I think that was part of what was the one
It was
before?
La Valbois,
Albois.
but it's West Rock.
West Rock only included the state lands here.
Okay.
Any expansion into Forest Service lands will require an amendment to the planned unit development and further public hearings.
Okay. And then maybe one more clarification for myself and the commission. If there are additional housing areas developed that are not part of the PUD, they would have to come back for that approval as well. Is that correct? Like if they do I'll call it mini subdivision within the PUD, there's one under development right now.
Right. Anything that's a diversion from the original preliminary plat requires that additional public hearing. And that's where they've been doing the infilling with the plats that we've been doing the last 4 to 5 years. The heritage was previously approved, but they're gonna have to come back for a preliminary plat on that. That's the part in the south, because if they make any changes that are substantially different than what the original preliminary plat was, they have to come back with a public hearing to amend that.
Okay.
These little infills, the structures, that's not a substantial change.
Other questions for staff?
No.
Okay. So Cinda, this is not a hearing? Or
It is a public hearing.
It is a public hearing. Okay, thank you. At this point in time, we'll hear from the applicant. If you'd come and introduce yourself and give us your address, appreciate it.
Commissioners, my name is Scott Turlington, 311 Village Drive, Tamarack, Idaho, 83615. I'm the president of Tamarack Resort, and also with me tonight, I have one of the partners and owners of the resort, Martin Pico. You typically see his name as the applicant on the applications. And he's here this week. And Martin's general roles at the resort range from a lot, but generally construction and overseeing all of the development that we're doing. So Martin has two brother-in-laws that are part of their family, and so they're very active at the resort and here quite a bit. So glad to have him here tonight as well. Thank you for your time tonight, for the opportunity to present our, I guess, a little more of the last 3 years, what's happened and what we're doing the next 3 years. The extension that we received from the P&Z and the commission last time was helpful. This will be helpful. You know, we've since the acquisition of Tamarack in 2019, there's been a lot to bite off and get our arms around, if you will. And we've learned a lot about the original PUD and how it was planned. And so we've, of course, made some changes internally to that. But at a very high level, we are still on track with the original concept. And we are making a few adjustments as we go, infill being one of those. But tonight I can go through and I can really go at the pace you'd like, but I can just visit the last couple of years, what we've done since the last extension. And then maybe if you want to spend a little more time on what we're doing the next 3 years, I'll kind of follow your lead on that. But I guess I'll start really with where we are today in terms of the progress we've made since 2019 when we had our last approval. So the big project for us was getting the village, the core 6 buildings that have been traditionally called Tyvek Village, completed, and that is complete now. We are in the process of finalizing the last 2 buildings. They're about 85% done. We'll actually start delivering those units in January to buyers. The first of the 129 units that were in those 6 buildings, 92 have been completed and sold. And with the remaining 37 that we'll start delivering in January, we've got 4 or 5 of those already under contract, and we'll continue to sell those throughout the ski season. That will really complete, for the most part, that core village. In addition to the residential piece on those, we've got a pretty significant amount of commercial that's been developed, and we operate at this point all the commercial except for Krusty's Pizza. We do have them under lease for that. And so that's been given us the opportunity to get the village alive, to put some life in it through our restaurants and the other spaces that we have there. We've got about 54,000 or about 5,000 square feet of new restaurant space that'll open up in a couple of weeks with 7 Devils. And we're excited to have that on board. That'll really kind of round out our restaurant offerings in the base village. Feel free to ask any questions as we move forward.
Sure, thank you.
So one of the other projects that we had over the last 3 years that we've worked on is Lake Wing. And Lake Wing sits really adjacent to the golf course next to the current lodge at Osprey Meadows. It's the parking structure, if you will. That's where the arrow is. And for Lake Wing, we started taking a hard look at that earlier this year. We did have to get a new plan set put together. And so we've got the plan set completed, and we'll most likely be submitting that for permit sometime this upcoming year. Our intent is to resume construction on that. We're going to see how the market goes and pay attention there, but we have, again, got the building permit set ready, and shortly we'll be moving forward on that. That's roughly 43 to 46 condominium units as well, and it'll in a great location. And obviously, if you've been out there, you've seen the structure that exists today. So we have all the parking facilities in place, which is a nice place to start from. On the snow front, most notably, we've removed the domes. And I appreciate the fact that the county system has an updated satellite imagery. I think that may have been like end of last summer. So it was able to capture all of the domes we've taken out. We still have 2 domes remaining. The one that the arrow is over now is our operations dome, and that still continues to operate for ski patrol and for mountain operations. One of the things that was in the update from 3 years ago is we planned on building a larger administrative building and mountain building, but we decided to wait, and we've left all those facilities in place as they are today. But over the next few years, we will transition that building out, that dome in particular. The other dome that still remains is our daycare facility. It's called the Wild Horse. We offer and we provide free daycare for all of our employees, so we needed to keep that until we get a permanent facility. It's actually one of the best tools that we have for staff. On any given day, we'll have anywhere from 25 to 40 kids in there of our employees that work. It's been a huge help to have that. So the Wild Horse facility is still operational, and that will likely stay there over the course of the next couple of years as well. But we do plan to phase both of those buildings out and replace them. Ponderosa Ridge was one of the other items that we saw in our last update. And happy to say that we just got the final will serves on Ponderosa Ridge. That consists of 15 individual villa lots. Initially, this had been slated for a different use. About 70 EDUs is what we had planned for. And it would have been either employee housing or condos, but we repurposed that. Went in there with something a little lower density. So we just got the first 2 foundations poured this week. And we'll build those throughout the summer, and then next spring, as the snow melts, we'll move in to get the remaining units built. So this will be Tamarack's. This is a Tamarack-built product, much like our old cottages and chalets that you may be familiar with. We were able to actually come up with a new design, new concept, something fresh, something new. So as a Tamarack-built product, it's something that there seems to be interest and demand for. So we're definitely excited to get those ready to go, and it'll be overlooking the old driving range, which is new, which is just below there. So all that's been rehabbed, and we'll talk about the golf course in just a minute. One project that we have put off for at least another 18 months is Design Plaza, which is just to the east of Ponderosa Ridge. So right there. So this is currently the home for the Municipal Association and about 59 contractors or 59 J1s, so students today. So we got permission from the county 3 years ago to convert those modular units into workforce housing. And it's been, we really appreciate that. It's made such a difference for us in terms of the contractor workforce we had there. We've transitioned a lot of our contractor force out and to what we're called J1 visas. And that's an international student that travels from abroad to come work for the ski season or the summer season. This year we have 53 J1 students. They're all arriving right now. We open tomorrow. So I am going to keep this short because we still have a lot of work to do. But that has been an amazing place for us to house contractors and employees. Over the next 12 to 24 months, however, we will transition all of those mods out and go back to what was originally in our PUD, which is townhomes. And so we're actually working on some new townhome designs now to come up with something fresh and something new. But again, I point that out because it's not something that we accomplished in the last 3 years, but we will move forward on that in the next 3. So that's a good segue into employee housing, which is definitely a big issue for us. We currently house about all in 90 employees, and that's all off-site for the most part. We have contracts with a couple of folks in the area where we utilize their facilities, and so that's a big number. However, we have under construction today our first phase of employee housing, which is in the area that Cinda's hovering over. We call that Lakeview Village, and we've got exactly 128 beds that will be delivered starting in April. It's 2 structures. They're Quonset huts, 6,000 square foot base, but we have 2 levels, windows, and so each unit will have 64 beds in it. And so we have 2 of those that we'll bring online starting in April. Our expected delivery date was in a few weeks, but we had some challenges with delivery schedules and supply chain, so that did delay us. Fortunately, we kept all of our off-site housing because we had a suspicion this could happen. But we're definitely excited to move our employee housing on-site to where the original intent of the PUD was, and so this will be a big step for us. And as we move into our summer operations, we expect to fill all 128 beds. We've been approached a lot from other entities in the county in terms of the bed availability for non-Tamarack employees, and our position's been pretty consistent. If we're in shoulder seasons or we have availability, we're happy to do month-to-month leases. However, we do have a PUD requirement that requires us to house roughly 40% of our employees. So we have to be judicious in what we do on the outside, but we recognize shoulder seasons often represent an opportunity to help as well. So with that, we can jump over to the golf course and what we've accomplished there. We had 15, there were 15 holes of the 18 that were not under ownership of the resort when we acquired it in December of 2019. And so we were successful in acquiring those 15 holes just over a year ago. Although I always contended that 3 holes gave you a better handicap, but I don't think that didn't sell a lot of golf. So we closed on that in October of 2020. What year is it? Is it 23 now? It's 22 now. So we closed in October of 21, and we commenced construction the second we were able to in the spring. Again, labor shortages created some issues for us. Instead of delivering 18 holes by the end of this summer, we were only able to take on 9 holes plus a driving range. So the remaining 9 holes will be completed through the renovation process next summer. And I would say with the front 9, we made some significant changes. We added a hole. We made some dramatic changes from how the course used to play on a few of the holes. So there was more work to be done. We moved a couple of water mains, we increased the number of sprinklers that we had from 2,700 to 3,000. So we've created in my opinion, and in the course designer's opinion, a much better and more playable course for our location. So the driving range actually opened this past summer. It opened in early to mid-August. It was nice to have that back on. So with our, call it a mid-July to early August timeframe, next summer we'll have 9 holes that will be playable, and we'll open the remaining 9 the following summer of 24. So if there's any more questions on the golf course, I could tell you a lot of stuff that you probably don't want to know, but it was definitely an exciting project, and one of the things I think that a lot of our guests and homeowners have been the most excited about is Osprey Meadows returning. So it's definitely one we're looking forward to. I can also speak briefly to our ski facilities. So in 2019, the fall of 2019, we did reinstall the Wildwood Lift, which is a high-speed detachable quad in the Wildwood Pod. That was one that the bank was obligated to take back. I think that might have been in 2011. So that was a big commitment on day one that we invested in, and it's been great. The Wildwood area represents a unique skiing opportunity, way different than what you find on the rest of the mountain. In addition to the Wildwood Lift, we've also invested heavily in snowmaking equipment, additional snowmaking pipe. We've started installing on all of our runs. We had to replace quite a bit of pipe as well that had not lasted its manufacturer's suggested lifetime, but that's a different conversation. But we've been very focused on expanding our snowmaking network, and in addition to about 10 new snow guns we've purchased over the last 2 years to help really get us open sooner and keep us open a little bit longer. So ski facilities are on track for sure. We've done a tremendous amount of brushing and tree removal on the mountain, and we'll continue to do that over the course of the next few years. And let's talk quickly about the Heritage parcel that did come up. So that is the parcel on the south. We have an option, a right on that to acquire that back from the Department of Environmental Quality. We certainly anticipate exercising that option, and that's up in the end of October of 2024, which actually works nicely into our development plan. And so our intent is to exercise that option when the time comes. The marina at Poison Creek. So we've actually operated since 2005 every year a small concession permit from the Parks and Recreation Department, and it's been very successful. We were able to get a permit from, we're currently negotiating a lease with the state Parks and Recreation Department for a long-term lease to actually develop out marina facilities. We're going through that process today. We've responded to two RFPs since 2019. The first one, time ran out, COVID and a bunch of other things happened, but at this point we've got a few more things to work through on the lease, and we hope to have that done sometime, let's say next year, early winter. What that will look like, just we have the opportunity to expand and actually put slips on Lake Cascade, fuel in that facility, and then a couple of on-site facilities. The campground will remain. We're not touching the campground. All of the parking slips, all of the camping slips will remain. We're most likely going to improve that facility overall by bringing water and sewer in particular sewer for the camp facilities. And so feel like we've got a good relationship with the state on that, and there's going to be definitely some benefits going to the camping, the RV spots that are located there. So I think that gets us through the last 3 years. Just a high overview, and what might make a little more sense if we jump back to table 1 at the end of the document. There's a few things I would point out. Well, actually, let's not do this. Let's go back to section 2. And under section 2, we can touch on, which if I haven't already, touch on a few of the areas that we're going to go into next. We've talked about Lake Wing. If you look under item 3, next phase of village expansion. So as we're approaching the end of phase 1 of the village with the 6 buildings being complete, our progression takes us to the north. And to the north, we've got about 4 buildings that we're looking to start development sometime over the next 3 years. We don't know exactly which building we'll start on yet, but we're working through that process. We're kind of updating our village plan today to incorporate either a hotel or some additional buildings. So we'll look at moving forward under B8, B9, B10, or B11. I'm sorry, B11 or B12, and that's in line with our PUD as well. But that will be the next phase for us in the village. We've talked about employee housing. I mentioned that the Tamarack Municipal Association, it's located in Design Plaza. This upcoming year, TMA will actually be relocating and building new facilities. We're providing them the land to do that, and they'll build out their facilities to a level that makes sense for the homes that we have there today. We've got about 450 or so units of real estate that have actually been sold. So actually a lot of homeowners there. Their facilities will move over to the north, in the north parking lots area. It's called the Aspen Parking Lot and North Laydown Yard. We've identified a parcel. So if you go towards West Mountain Road, Cinda. Keep going. Sorry.
Oh, this
all the
one
way
down
down
here, okay.
Yeah, there we go. So you see the large coveralls. So just to the south of those coveralls is sort of the general area where we've identified for TMA to relocate its facilities. It'll have, a shop. It'll have the postal services, all they need for administration, package facility. So it'll be a nice facility. They're currently in the process right now of going through the design. You'll probably be seeing them soon in terms of their approval. So that's a big step, which is the first thing we need to do in order to move into the townhomes that are located up in Design Plaza. So we touched on those. I'll touch briefly on item number 7, Buttercup Chalets. This is an infill project. It's on the north side of the resort up in the Whitewater area. So very close to the Whitewater, the Buttercup Lift. So this is an infill project of about 12 chalet lots. And that's something that over the next 3 years we intend to develop as well. So we'll get into, I think, probably the more interesting topic, which would be our ski expansion. Actually, before I do that, let me bounce forward a little bit and talk about Mid-Mountain, the Mid-Mountain Lodge and Event Center is what we're calling it. So when we acquired the resort in 2019, one of the conditions of the lease that we have with the state of Idaho in order to get the assignment was we have Mid-Mountain Lodge completed by December of 2024. And so that is our plan. We started that process this past summer to get that moving. We got the outside painted and the windows rehabbed. And so we intend to move forward on the completion of the interior of that building next summer. It's roughly, I think it's about 13,000 square feet, approximate seating for 350 or so folks, including outside decks that we'll have. That will be really for us another opportunity to showcase the mountain. So we are excited about completing that. It's substantially complete today, but there's a lot of interior work to be done.
Scott, did that structure sustain any damage on the interior while it sat idle?
No, Commissioner, it did not. In fact, it's it's eerie when you walk in there. It's like the crews were just in there last week, hoodies hanging on nails. And over the course of that period of time, it was well winterized and maintained. And we actively used it to store ski patrol items. And so we kept it in good shape.
Yep, thank you.
On item 11, our charter school. So this past September, we were able to start. We didn't start it. We were able to allow a charter school to come on site. We provided them land, and they're currently in a temporary facility right now. There's about 85 or so students. It's a K-8 charter school. It's called the Mountain Community School. It actually received their charter a couple of years ago prior to COVID, and then they had an option on a piece of property in McCall that fell through, and so we were able to work out an agreement where we provided the land and a lot of the infrastructure, all the construction to help them get going. So right now they're in a temporary facility, and next summer we'll move them to where their permanent location will be. But the facilities that they're going to start off in will be brand new yurts that they've ordered, and they think that the yurts will provide them about a 5-year life cycle, and then from there they'll build an actual school. As a charter school, it does receive public funding from the state. We have no interest in the school other than we provide the land for $1 a year. And it's been a really great relationship so far. They do their thing. You see the kids all the time out on the snow front. At least you did in the summer. I'm not sure how the winter would be, but I would imagine that they'll be up on the hill a few times. And I think it's great. I don't think they actually have to skip school to go ski, so it should be kind of cool. Talked about the golf course renovation. Well, let's jump back briefly to number 9, or maybe spend a little more time on number 9, our special use permit. So we started this process roughly 2.5 years ago with the Forest Service to acquire a special use permit for some of the land that's to the south and to the north. And as we started this process, we began working with stakeholders here in Valley County. We updated the county commissioners. We've done that a couple of times. We've gone out and sat down with different groups. We've met with some Forest Service coalition members, and so we've advanced this process to the point we had our application approved, which doesn't mean the project's been approved by any means. It just means they've accepted what we've proposed, which would now logically lead us to the next steps, which would be the NEPA process, or the environmental review process. And that will result in the study of all the environmental impacts and public impacts under what's called an environmental impact statement, or an EIS. That'll take a couple of years. It's not a fast process, but it's one that we're working right now to hopefully get moving on sometime mid Q1 with the Forest Service. So it in no way indicates that this is going to happen. In fact, there's at least 4 different options that come out of, or alternatives that come out of the NEPA process, and one of those alternatives is a no action alternative. So very likely we could get to the end of this and nothing happens, or we get some variation of what we're asking for. So we have a long ways to go on this, and I know we've discussed this quite a bit with the commission as we've updated them from time to time, and it's just a slow process. It's interesting to note that this is the actual property, the original Forest Service land that Valbois started on, and so it's almost full circle. And I know why it doesn't often go well, because this is not an easy process or an inexpensive process. But it's one that we are committed to based on not only the demand that we have today. We've doubled our skier visits in the last 2 years from anything we saw in the first 10 years of operation. And and that's in large part due because Idaho has been discovered, and right, wrong, or indifferent, it's happened. And so our objective is to make sure that as they come here, we have that diverse terrain to provide for them. So that will continue to be ongoing. We're looking to acquire under permit roughly 2,100 acres, and that is including land to the south and to the north. So it's a much smaller parcel than what had been discussed any years previously. If you remember, in 2007-8 timeframe, there was a proposal that was moving forward that would have brought about 8,000 additional acres under leasehold for the resort. Seems like a lot to me today, and so we're down to just over 2,000 acres. So it's much more manageable. It's a smaller footprint, and it's an area that we feel like adds a lot of huge opportunity to the recreation for both summer and for winter. What you'll likely see, or at least what we've proposed, is that we expand our lift network under this proposal to 5 new aerial lifts, including a base to summit gondola, and then high-speed detachable quads and a few fixed grip quads. There'll be additional guest service facilities on the mountain for sure, and then we'll continue to expand those down in our base area. We're going to add about 30 or so miles of hiking trails, downhill mountain bike trails, and we've proposed a few other things, a Via Ferrata, which is really more of a cabling system along some of the rocks, and on the north piece, on the north side up in the bowls, that presents that opportunity. But again, we've just proposed it. It doesn't mean we would do it, even if it got approved. But the Forest Service tells you to put everything plus the kitchen sink in your proposal, because it's really hard to get things changed once they move forward. So with that, I think that is a good overview of what we anticipate doing the next 3 years. And Commissioner Roberts, I think your question earlier of if we have something that's not a part of the PUD today and we want to do it, what does that process look like? And it looks like us coming back to amend our PUD and move forward under that process. And so as we consider a number of options, we have ideas, and we're still working through a number of things that we could potentially do, but we don't have anything at this point that is solidified in terms of having to do that, which is why you don't see anything in this update today that would suggest we're coming back. So we still have a number of things to work through before we make those decisions. But as we do, we'll obviously bring those back to this body and have them move on and go through the process that's required for that. Happy to answer any questions on any of these topics. And so I guess I turn the
Okay.
time.
Thank you. Any questions? Questions? No. Okay. So, Scott, number one, I appreciate the update. I think it's good for the P&Z Commission to get regular updates. Thank you for the owners being here this evening, or the owners appreciate your presence. I found it interesting as Cinda was going through the staff report where you had neighbor comments, none. That was not the case in 1998. I remember those meetings.
I don't remember those here, but I remember them in Boise for sure.
Yes, yeah. So I think at this point in time, we'll go ahead and close the
But this is a public
presentation.
hearing.
It is not.
It is a public
Yeah,
hearing.
I know.
Okay.
I closed the presentation portion of it. And then we'll see if there is anybody that is wanting to speak in favor, unopposed, or opposed or undecided. So with that, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of the extension? Come to the microphone and state your name and your address, please.
My name is Jim Frank. I'm associated with the project for over 30 years. I do remember those days in 1998.
Yes.
And I just wanted to say I've seen this process all the way through to the date, and the ownership is spot on. The things that they have said they're going to do, they have done. And I see a positive trend forward. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Jim. Other people would like to testify in favor of the extension? Are there any that are undecided that would like to speak? Seeing none, are there any opposed that would like to speak? Come to the microphone and state your name, please, and your address.
Yeah, Joey Petrie, McCall. I'd just like to see the commissioners, and thank you for letting me speak. I'd like to see the commissioners ask for a report on the cumulative effects of all of these proposals. With the marina, the fuel in the lake, with the sensitive area that we live in, as you even stated a few few meetings back about with the storage units. I don't know why this would be any different, having a marina in Cascade Lake. So I'd just like to see a little bit of future planning and more done for the community. I think it's great that they're doing housing for non-Tamarack employees. I think that's a good thing. And I remember prior to Valbois, what Poison Creek looked like, and it certainly doesn't look like that now. Just driving along West Mountain Road, there was a beautiful Tamarack stand, and I'm wondering who's speaking for the rights of nature. And nature's supposed to have rights as well. Rivers, streams, trees, they're all living beings. And I think we need to learn from the indigenous about, what is important, not just investment. And I'm curious about the Planning and Zoning Commission. Like, who is it you're responsible to? Are you responsible to the investors, or are you responsible to the residents of Valley County? So I would really like you to address those things before any approvals are made. And I know this is just a preliminary to keep the ball rolling for Tamarack, which is fine, but they're asking for a lot. And we already got a lot going on. And I'd like to see things taken care of right now, such as sewer, water, all the infrastructure, the S-Bridge, all of these things that need to be addressed before anything moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Are there others that would like to speak in opposition to the application for an extension? Hearing none, does the applicant like to have a rebuttal since there was testimony?
Commissioner Scott Turlington with Tamarack. I would just add, and I do appreciate the acknowledgement on the housing. That is a big issue in Valley County. I would speak a little bit to some of the concerns on the environmental side. With Poison Creek, the Bureau of Reclamation, it's a federal project, and the Resource Management Plan, which governs that project, there's only 2 marinas that are called out and authorized under that RMP, one being Van Wyck and one being Poison Creek. So what Tamarack is doing, there's been, in addition to the relationship with the state and the annual leases that we've had there, this falls in line with what the Bureau of Reclamation does. And every 10 years, they update that plan. And that plan has continued to carry forward the idea of that reservoir. We all know it's a reservoir having a marina at Poison Creek. So it is a lake for recreation. It serves the interest of the water users downstream. And so we feel that it's appropriate and important to provide that recreational component. If Poison Creek wasn't called out in the resource management plan, we wouldn't be having this discussion because there's no way to put a marina in without that. So we're incredibly focused and sensitive to our environment as well. And, he spoke of, who's protecting the tamarack trees. We've got a particular and keen interest in the tamarack tree. It's our namesake. We've got one of the largest groves of tamaracks anywhere, almost 100 acres, 85 to 90 acres in the Wildwood area. We take serious our responsibility to the environment. I mentioned some of our snowmaking equipment. We've just acquired the first ever of a particular model of a snow gun. We're the first ski resort in North America to use these snow guns. They are 30% more efficient than any snow gun ever produced. They turn themselves on and off based on weather. The amount of the reduction in water that they use is tremendous. And so, we actively look for opportunities to improve where we can in the environment. We're also very fortunate to have some very senior water rights that date back to 1899. And so we have sufficient water for not only what we have today, but for the entire expansion. We've got 9 active wells. We're exploring new wells, and we've got surface water rights. So we're in a position where we've got the resources. We're very wise stewards of those resources. And but at the end of the day, we're going to cut down trees for ski runs, but we're going to do it in a way that is as as non-impactful as we can because we have an obligation and we take that seriously. So I appreciate the chance for the rebuttal.
Thank you. At this point in time, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for deliberations. The request is for a recommendation, staff recommendation. Staff has recommended to us that we recommend to the Board of County Commissioners to approve a extension for the planned unit development until December 31st, 2025. And then make the findings that Tamarack Resort PUD has established and will need, no additional extension hearings. So that's the recommendation by staff. Are there any other comments? I just a comment. I always like to drop a little bit of history in some of these hearings because it's kind of fun to do, but that grove of tamarack trees that is on that mountain sprung up after a forest fire in the early 1930s. And my uncle remembers the day when he was sitting in the McGregor Schoolhouse and could look up on the mountain and see that fire when it started. It was a lightning strike, so that's how that grove of trees got there, Scott. I will say this. I know that originally in 1998, when we had this proposal originally, we had a significant amount of issues that were put on what we called the master list, I believe. At one point in time, I think we had over 150 different items on that list of issues that we resolved. We assigned different state agencies, federal agencies, county agencies, school districts, and we went through the checklist on virtually every item on that list. Cindy, you probably still have a copy of that somewhere.
Probably.
And I think the P&Z's role in this is to, see if the development has progressed along the lines within that original planned unit development concept. And I can say, at least from my perspective, it's they had a huge hiccup for economic reasons that have had some different changes in ownerships. They've done I think a stellar job in trying to revamp and bring that back in a responsible manner. And I think that granting an extension makes sense. They're definitely part of our community.
Absolutely, I agree. I would motion to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners that PUD 98-1 Tamarack Resort Update and Extension is granted through December 31st of 2025. And I'm sorry, Cinda, what was the rest of it?
I wanted to make, Valley County Code 9-9-4 says extensions may be approved by the commission. And what I'm asking is that you approve because you are the commission, Board of County Commissioners or the board in this portion of the ordinance, that you approve this extension and then recommend they do their presentation to the board for an update and include that they do not have to go through any more extension public hearings unless there are changes to the planned unit development.
Okay. But I would also make the motion that Tamarack PUD no longer needs to come before us for extensions, only for changes to substantial changes to their PUD.
As a recommendation.
As a recommendation, sorry, to the Board of County Commissioners. Is that fine? You
Right,
need
but
anything else?
This is an approval of the extension and then a recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners concur that they don't have to go through those additional extensions.
Okay.
I think would cover it.
Motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 And
Those opposed? And motion has passed, and this will carry an approval of the extension to December 31st, The recommendation of the board for no further approvals for extension.
So there's the 10-day appeal of that final decision. And then I would also ask that you make a motion or a request that they come back and periodically update P&Z and the board,
Right, okay.
just directly to them.
So let's take care of the first thing first. So on the action that was just taken, there is a 10-day appeal period. It can be appealed to the Board of County Commissioners. Anybody can appeal that. The second item is dealing with the issue that staff has just raised about requesting that Tamarack Resort come back and make regular updates to this Planning and Zoning Commission. I think it would make sense, as Senator recommended, to put that in the form of a motion.
Like every 3 years.
I would entertain that motion.
I'll make that motion. Tamarack PUD periodically comes and gives the P&Z Commission updates roughly every 3 years.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Motion is passed. All righty.
Yes.
I don't know that there's a 10-day appeal period on that.
No, it wasn't a decision. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Caldwell, thank you. Welcome back. Sorry we took so long. I think we just go ahead and move right on along with the agenda here for a little bit, and then we'll eventually take a break. Second on our agenda today, under old business, is conditional use permit 21-01, Django Acres subdivision, number 1, final plat. Is there any ex parte contact or conflict of interest on this application?
No.
No.
No. Hearing none, Cindy?
Right now, I'm trying to find it on here. Right here? Okay, I thought you had. There it is, right there. That's the piece of property. And here's the plat. So the staff report for CUP 2101 Django Acre subdivision final plat. The applicant owner was Gordon Hanson with IWS LLC. The engineer is Crestline Engineers, and the surveyor was Dunn Land Surveys. The property is addressed at 14137 Highway 55, and it's 20.3 acres. Gordon Hanson is requesting the final plat approval. The commission will review the final plat to determine conformance with the preliminary plat, approved densities, and conditional use permit. The approval for a conditional use permit and preliminary plat was effective March 25th, 2021. The preliminary plat approval was for a 4-lot mixed single-family residential and commercial use subdivision on 20 acres. Approval includes 3 2-acre residential lots and 1 12-acre commercial lot. 6 commercial buildings, each with 11,972 square feet of floor space and an office area of 2,304 square feet of floor space were approved. The lots ranged in size from 2 to 12 acres. 1 or more of the residential lots were approved to be used for workforce and or multifamily duplex housing. This includes 1 or 2 duplexes on lot 2 and 1 duplex or single-family residence on the other 2 lots for a total of no more than 6 residential units. At this time, the developer does not plan to build multi-residences on the lots. A revised site plan was approved by the P&Z Commission in April of 2021. This included a pond right there. And a new private road from Highway 55 instead of the driveway access. A water storage tank for fire mitigation purposes was originally required. However, the pond will be used for fire suppression instead. The property is within the Lake Irrigation District. Commercial buildings are to be used for boat surface, retail sales, and boat and/or recreational vehicle storage. Additional improvements to be completed include pavement, asphalt pavement on the private road, landscape trees, shrubbery, and irrigation systems. The final plat was submitted on November 8th of 2022. Legal notice was posted in the Star News on November 17th and November 23rd. The proposed final plat was posted to the Valley County website on November 8th. This is not a public hearing. Lori Frederick, Valley County Cadastral Specialist, has reviewed the final plat and found no discrepancies. And then staff comments, questions, or recommendations. The fire suppression water storage tank location needs to be shown on the final plat if it's put in, but I think that they just have the pond now. The CCNR should address septic systems and long-term management of the septic systems as an education piece. Which nearby parcels will have access to water sports lane? I'm trying to confirm that the properties to the south will have access using this platted road. Additional notes on the plat are needed as follows. Only one wood burning device allowed per lot. Note 5 should also include approval of the Valley County Planning and Zoning Commission as part of the subdivision plat. And then there's a couple other notes that need to be put on here. One is required in Title 10, and it says something about should be aware that adjacent properties are subject to change. And we'll fine tune that. We had made those amendments in 2015, that the plat should all contain that note. And then portions of that Title 10 also require that the various uses be crosshatched. So there should be a note on the face of the plat that describes the approved uses in each lot, so that people in the future can tell exactly what's going on. So some sort of a use document that's referenced by a note would suffice for that, with the crosshatching of the location of the buildings. And I can show you exactly in the ordinance where it says that. And then the following are the conditions of approval and comments as to whether the applicant has complied with each condition. Condition of approval number 1 is completed, 2 is completed. The plat, number 3 is the plat must be recorded by March 25th of 2023. Number 4 is complete. The stormwater management and site grading plan were approved by the Valley County engineer on August 5th of 2021. The roads shall be constructed in accordance with the Valley County private road standards. And then the engineer reviewed those construction drawings prior to development. That was August 5th of 2021. Prior to recordation of the plat, the developer's engineer shall certify that the road is constructed in accordance with the plans approved by the Valley County engineer. And that is not completed. We don't have, it's not completed per the letter dated November 8th of 2022. So we still need that. We need the private road declaration. Number 9 is based upon information that is provided by the Army Corps of Engineers. The wetlands should be marked as no build areas on the final plat. 10, applicant will submit letter prior to recordation of the final plat, and that's the approval from the McCall Fire and EMS. 11, CCNR should address lighting and limit each lot to one wood burning device. Applicant will include that in the CCNRs that will be provided prior to recordation of the final plat. And also you should include the septic information. 12, all lighting must comply with the Valley County lighting ordinance. Applicant will include in CCNRs prior to recordation. 14 and 13 is just well, it should be number 13. So place addressing numbers at each driveway and each building. They'll comply with that. It will be included in their CCNRs. A letter from the Lake Irrigation is required stating they have no concerns with the subdivision or development. Applicant will include or provide prior to recordation of the final plat. 16, building permits are required for each building. They're complying with that. Hours of operation are limited 9 to 6. That will be in the CCNRs. Must submit traffic study and approved letter from Idaho Transportation Department. They have provided that. Shared access easement is allowed from Highway 55 with access to lots from private road. A 50-foot wide ingress, egress, and utility easement is shown inside the private road right-of-way on the final plat. A letter from Lake Irrigation, they're going to provide that. No fueling allowed on site, they're gonna put that in their CC&Rs. Must have approval from Central District Health and DEQ for septic drains and water usage. 2 septic permits have been granted. A formal subdivision environmental report will be submitted to Central District Health to release the sanitary restrictions. We typically don't record plats without the release of those sanitary restrictions. Applicant's packet includes Idaho Department of Water Resource water right form for the pond created for the fire protection and recreational storage. Must allow access to adjoining properties off the private road if they agree to participate in maintenance and snow removal. Applicant states the CC&Rs will allow adjoining property owners to access their property if they agree to maintenance and snow removal. 24, if there are substantive changes due to the concepts from City of McCall, we would make those changes, but we didn't receive any comments from the City of McCall. And then at this time, let's see, must submit site plan with landscaping concepts for the multifamily lots with the final plat submittal package. At this time, the owner does not plan to develop multifamily units on the residential lots. If they choose to construct those units, a site plan with landscaping shall be submitted prior to review and approval for the issuance of the building permit. And then 26, no outside storage of boats for sale. Applicant will include in the CC&Rs that will be provided prior to recordation of the final plat. Since the staff report was completed, we've received additional information. One is the note, all plats must have the following note: surrounding land uses are subject to change. It's just a public awareness thing. And then the CC&Rs were Exhibit 1. And Exhibit 2 were the owner's declaration of private roads. And each of you got copies of that. There's a note here that says water sports is 1 word on the plat, and it's 2 words in here. So you might want to clean some of that up. And that ends the staff report. You have questions?
Cinda, where was the wording change? Where it was 2 words and 1 word? Was that in the CC&Rs?
The private road declaration
Private road declaration.
were water sports. And number 2, located within water sports lane. But if I look,
I can speak to that a little bit more too.
it's 1 word on the plat here.
Should be changed to 2.
Changed to 2.
And Sam, I believe there's a note on the plat also, I think, where water sports might be 1.
I can't hear you, Rob.
Why don't you state your name for the record, please?
Rob Pear, Crestline Engineers, 323 Dinehard Lane in McCall. I believe there might also be a note that references water sports lane, but for sure the name of the road on the plat needs to be 2 words.
So Cinda, that will be changed before we sign the final plat, is that correct?
Yes, we'll get all that cleaned up.
So I made notes of 2 things that are not on the list here. One is the reference to Title 10 that you referenced, and then there was another request about another note on the face of the plat.
It should contain the approved uses of each lot.
Okay, you got those written down? Awesome.
Good job.
Okay. Any other questions for Cinda at this point in time? Any questions for the applicant's representative?
I do. May I?
You bet.
So you've come in for final plat approval.
Yes.
the road is not complete yet.
Correct.
There are some things that aren't complete. Are you going to financially guarantee those? Or get your final plat approval here and then wait for it to complete those before we go to the county commissioners? And I believe they have a year to get that done.
So if I could clarify, she is correct. The road is not paved yet, and there's a few outstanding items with construction. The window just got a little short this year. And I wasn't sure if I was going to need to ask for an extension on the recordation of the final plat, or if we have time after recommended approval here.
They can extend that as part of their motion tonight.
Okay. So then I'd like to formally request a extension to record the final plat for 1 year from the date originally stated in CUP 2001.
It's not really an extension. It's approval of the final plat allowing them 1 year because it's not an extension of the CUP. They've complied with the CUP. So it's not an extension of that. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Otherwise, we need to back up and do a public hearing for a formal extension of the CUP. They've complied with it. They have some things that they need to complete before it's recorded.
But they got weathered out.
Huh?
But they got weathered out.
Yeah. And then the first, once we got our final construction plans approved, that was the year that DEQ and EPA switched for the stormwater pollution prevention plan. And we had to go through a very long process we had to go through the State Historical Preservation Office and get a field study done by an archaeologist. And it completely ruined that first construction season, which costed a whole year when it really should have been mostly complete that fall.
One question,
So-
Cinda.
Go ahead.
It will be an additional 12 months allowed to record the final plat from what date?
Okay.
From today, okay.
They should have it completely done
It should be done.
with landscaping by then.
Easily.
We
easily.
just don't want to record the plat till they're done.
Right.
And Cinda, may I ask one more question? So, you said to state the uses in a note
I'll
on.
read it right down.
Okay, and then to crosshatch the buildings to show what their uses are going to be.
Right, let's see, 10-3-3-2 F3 says where more than one type of land use is provided, sites to be used other than for one single-family detached dwelling shall be shaded or crosshatched, and the uses shall be used as indicated. Where sites for one-family detached dwellings are not included, such requirements shall apply to all uses other than the most substantial in the areas. So I think if on the commercial use site,
Mm-hmm.
they want that you could just crosshatch where the buildings are located and put a note that describes what that crosshatch means. That those were approved for the commercial storage buildings. And then they're going to, if they want to continue with the multifamily uses back here, they'll have to crosshatch those too.
Mhm.
In a different crosshatch and describe that in a note. And then the other one is the 10-3-2-8 that says, note shall also state surrounding land uses are subject to change. And those were ordinances adopted in 2013. We kind of fell out of practice. We didn't have any plats.
Did you capture that one?
That doesn't need to be stated on the plat, that just needs to be it does need.
It does need to be a note on the face of the plat.
Is there anything else from the applicant's representative to like?
I
to
could
speak?
clarify the access easement to the adjoining properties. It's stated in the CCNRs, but there's also that 50-foot ingress egress easement that will allow McCall Ranch Parcel 3, which is to the south, access. If they would like to access their property past that 200-foot easement, it's stated in the CCNRs that they will come to an agreement with the HOA to coordinate snow removal and maintenance of the road. Parcel 1B, due to the east, is granted sole access using water sports lane so that it's not landlocked, and it's stated in the CCNRs and private road declaration as well.
That's
Which
theirs.
the owner owns that parcel as well.
This is the Meyer one.
Correct.
Who owns the parcel to the east or west, excuse me?
The applicant as well.
Okay. But there is a easement, recorded easement to Highway 55 on, between the other two parcels, is that correct?
Yes, and if you could go back to the plat, on the original McCall Ranch survey, that was a 50-foot strip easement in order to create a 70-foot road right of way and put the road in the correct spot.
Got it.
The owner purchased the property to the west, and then there is an easement for parcel 2 in the first 200 feet of the private road.
For the full 70-foot?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, all right. Thank you.
And maybe they could put that allowance for use by the people to the south in the private road declaration also.
I might have to reread it. I believe it does outline
Okay,
the uses
we
for
just wanna
parcel
make sure.
3 and for parcel 1B.
Okay. So that in the future they can track that. Because we don't enforce CCNRs.
Right. Okay, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Send it. You want to read down your list again and make sure that Sasha has them down so when she makes the motion?
I think Sasha has it.
You got it?
It would just be
Okay,
a
she's
motion
got
to
it.
approve final plat authorized signature with the conditions that the additional information is stated is added to the plat. And then when we come back for facts and conclusions and minutes, we'll list it in there.
Okay.
I wasn't tracking, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think we were ready for a motion.
I will motion that CUP 21-01 Django Acre Subdivision Number 1 is approved or recommended for approval of final plat with the conditions of approval stated in the staff report. In addition to adding these two things to the face of the plat, the adjacent land uses are subject to change, and that the face of the plat should contain the approved uses of each lot. There's one other change that needs to be made in the consistency of the road name of Water Sports Lane, so that everything's consistent. And in addition, we would like to request that an additional 12 months be allowed to record the final plat from today's date, and authorize the chairman to sign.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
No.
Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion is passed.
I just want to clarify with Rob something. The irrigation letter, don't forget that.
Yes.
And are there any wetlands?
Yes, and that is the outline of the pond.
Okay, so,
And I believe the note says wetland no build area.
okay. So this is a wetland, you're going to put a pond here, so you're going to have, we'll need the approval letter from the Corps of Engineers.
So you submit the approval letter from the Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, we'll
Approving the
want their
pond.
approval that you're allowed to put a pond there.
I can do
Okay.
that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you guys.
I did meet with them yesterday.
I was about ready to have you guys have a separate sidebar.
I like to get it on the record.
Okay. All right. Everybody okay to continue? Need a break?
I'm good.
All right. Next item, number 3. Under old business is conditional use permit 22-06 Schaefer subdivision, final plat. Is there any conflict of interest for ex parte contacts?
No.
No.
No. Okay. We are ready for staff report on the final plat. This is not a public hearing.
Okay. The staff report for CUP 2206, Schaefer subdivision final plat. The applicant's Big Cabin Properties LLC. The representative is James Frock Consulting LLC, engineers Crestline Engineers. The property is addressed at 13526 Highway 55. I will get that on here. Parcel there. Brian Schaefer of Big Cabin Properties LLC is requesting final plat approval. The commission will review the final plat to determine conformance with the preliminary plat, approved densities, and conditional use permit. The approval for conditional use permit and preliminary plat was effective June 7th of 2022. The preliminary plat approval is for a 4-lot mixed-use subdivision that includes heavy industrial, that's the lumber mill, light industrial, multiple residences, and single-family residential uses, as well as Craftsman Learning Academy. The Craftsman Learning Academy is the highlight for Lot 1, with residential uses for students proposed on Lot 2. I listed the different uses for Lots 1, 2, 3, and 4. The Board of County Commissioners heard this in appeal, and then they also approved the variances for relaxation of 70 feet from 100 feet setback from the front property line along Highway 55, and the relaxation of 40 feet for the pole building to be 60 feet from the high water line of the pond. Individual wells and individual septic systems are proposed. A floodplain designation is shown on the plat. There would be no building within the floodplain or the wetlands. The final plat was submitted on November 14th. Legal notice was posted in the Star News on November 17th and November 23rd. The proposed final plat was posted on the Valley County website, and this is not a public hearing. Agency comments received, none. Staff questions, comments? Are the wetlands indicated on the final plat approved by the Army Corps of Engineers? And how were the wetlands delineated? And the following are the conditions of approval and comments as to whether the applicant has complied with each condition. 1, check. 2, check. 3, must be recorded by June 7th of 2024. All uses shall be established by June 7th of 2027. Condition of approval number 5, must have an approved stormwater management plan and site grading plan approved by the Valley County engineer prior to any work being done on site. The applicant states that's in process. Lots 2, 3, and 4 shall access from Spink Lane. Installation of utilities declaration is plat note number 2. Must comply with Central District Health requirements and will receive Central District Health approval prior to submittal to the Board of County Commissioners. A letter of approval is required from Donley Fire District prior to recording of the final plat. Applicant states they'll receive that prior to submittal by the Board of County Commissioners. Wetlands and floodplains shall be marked as no build areas on the final plat. That's done. The lighting needs to be included in the CC&Rs. Landscaping plan is required. CC&R should address lighting, wildfire prevention, noxious weed septic maintenance, and limit each lot to 1 wood burning device, and we need that. So place addressing numbers at each residence, and that'll be included in the CC&Rs. And then, prior to construction of any on-site improvements, the applicant shall meet with the Valley County Road Director and the Board of County Commissioners to discuss off-site road improvements. If an agreement cannot be reached, the applicant shall be set for another public hearing with the Valley County Planning and Zoning Commission to determine if the application can be approved without improvements, and shall meet their mandates concerning public health, safety, and welfare matters. The discussion will be concerning current road conditions and potential mitigation for impacts caused by the development. And we do need that. They've placed the note on the face of the plat. They've talked about fencing. The variances were approved by the Board of County Commissioners on May 23rd. And then this development agreement memorializing the approved uses for each lot, including the description of the academy and any requirements agreed to with the road department, including dust control. So number 22 ties in with condition of approval number 15. And that document needs to be completed before we go to the Board of County Commissioners. There shall be no rentals less than 30 days, and that needs to be in the CC&Rs. And must place irrigation pipe easement on plat across lot 4 if it's not abandoned, so they need to let us know if it's abandoned or not. And then if lots are sold, there must be full disclosure of industrial use in close proximity, and that should be in the CC&Rs. And this one also, this is what made me aware of it actually. Since the staff report was completed, I received exhibit number 1, and that's from the Valley County Cadastral Specialist. And they have found a few discrepancies with the plat, and sent that information on to Ralph, the surveyor. And those changes will need to be made. And then we received a letter from Donley Borough Fire, and they state that all roads shall be completed and inspected by the fire district personnel prior to final plat, and the fire protection water supply tank specifications shall be sent to Donley Fire District. Water system shall be tested and approved prior to final plat. And then on this one, we also have the requirement for the notes that say the same ones, the 10-10-3-2. Let me get it out here. Sorry. 10-3-3-2 F3. That has to show the different uses shaded or crosshatched, and that can be wrapped into that development agreement. And a note so that it's better defined. I can see the crosshatch for the different uses, notes, and then that tied into a development agreement.
All on the plat,
Right.
correct?
Right. And then the development agreement will be a separate document, just so that we don't lose track of what was approved, years to come. And then the 10-3-3-2 F4. Well, they should show the building envelopes. They need to put the surrounding land uses are subject to change note on here. And we'll work closely with them on that development agreement. And then I thought I had a question in the staff report, about the wetlands, making sure that those, have the approval of the Corps of Engineers. And then it was brought to my attention that, and they're going to address it tonight, I've already talked to them, they drilled 4 individual wells on the property. And so they'll need approval from IDWR or DEQ stating that those individual wells are adequate for the different uses on each one of those lots. Because if they're a single-family residential well, if they're being used in a multifamily residence, we're going to want that approval. And that ends my staff report.
Okay.
Yeah, so one more statement. I don't know if you want to go ahead, if you would want to approve it or see more before approval. That's up to the board. The commission.
I guess maybe from my perspective, it would be nice to have these other conditions, recommendations written down.
The one with the notes?
Yeah, as a staff recommendation, maybe. But I mean, I think we've captured them.
That they're just requirements listed in Valley County Code
Right.
Title 10.
But we're bringing them up by putting them on to the plat, by listing them on the plat.
There's a standard listed in that title. You could just say the 10-3-3-2F3
3 and F4.
and then 10-3-3-2F4.
F4. Okay, we can reference those. Any other questions for Cinda?
Okay.
We'll bring the applicant up for any questions.
Stand by me? Okay. My name is Jim Frank, and I'm with James Frank Consulting. This is my applicant.
Ryan Schaefer, and I'm here to answer any questions you have specifically about the curriculum. Tim can answer anything else.
I wanted to go through and go through some of the items that Cinda mentioned. First of all, in my list of things, I did meet with the fire district this morning, Donnelly Fire District, to make sure that we were clear on my previous visit as to what was going to be required on for this subdivision. It ultimately will be a 10,000-gallon tank situated next to the existing pond that will be fed by an existing well to meet their needs. The individual dwellings, as they come along in their sequencing, will be approved by the fire district and also the state fire marshal, because they'll have sprinkler systems within them, and there's a specific design for each different unit. So that is the sequence of how it happens, and we're aware of that. The other item was the wells, and we're going to get further information on that and respond to staff with response to that. Generally, I think the statute is for a certain amount of gallons of water that's produced to a level, I think it's like 10,500 gallons before it moves into a commercial. So they have a threshold within that. But we'll get that and respond to the staff on that, clarify that issue. One of the questions I had on the plat was if we wanted to include the pond configuration on the plat itself, the face. And that's a question to staff and commission, if that's required or not required. And so thoughts on that. The other issue with the wetland delineation has been completed. It has briefly been viewed on site by Army Corps of Engineers. The delineation was conducted under the Corps of Engineers wetland delineation, which they now call aquatic resource delineation methodology under the 1987 manual. That data was then gone over with on a Teams meeting with the Army Corps representative, and will be followed up with a wetland delineation report or aquatic resource report that he will review and then issue a jurisdictional determination. So that sets the boundary of the wetlands for like 5 years. So as it's anticipated now that there is no impacts to any of the wetlands that are out there, and they're primarily associated with cutoff drains that were built for this mill back in the 50s or whenever it was built to capture the water that was coming off the irrigation above on Bettis's property, coming across and hitting that restricted layer. So they built these conveyances out, and that's what's associated wetlands. So they're very linear, and you'll see that on the plat and how they're viewed. Another clarification is just as much as I'd like to help out Crestline, they're not the engineer of record. It's CSASH Engineering.
Sorry.
And let's see here. The landscape plan is anticipated, just so you know what it will entail. It's generally, the site is over time has timbered with lodgepole pine. We have the fire management plan that was presented to staff, prepared by a professional, and he recommends thinning around the various dwellings units and some selective thinning just to clear out and thin out the thick low stand out there as far as height. So during that process, we're going to be very selective on how we keep the screening between each area so that we have the natural screen that's there. Probably don't need a lot of installation of additional plant material, particularly along the highway, because we have site distances that we have to maintain just in that S curve there. So our landscape plan will pretty much entail that kind of an approach. Yeah, so I have a question to staff. When we talk about, I understand the development agreement and having the cross-hatching and issues with that, are you, for clarification, are you talking it being both indicated on the plat face with the cross-hatching and addressed and co-addressed in the development agreement?
Right, I'm recommending that there be like a crosshatch where the structure for that different use is going to be located with a note indicating what that use is, with an instrument number reference tying it to the development agreement where we're going to explain all of it.
Yeah, I understand that, and that's a succinct way of doing it. So that crosshatch area, is it the building envelope as perceived in 12.8.222?
Building envelope.
Yeah, the building envelope, which may change, but
Well, if it's on the plat, it doesn't.
well, what I'm getting at, here's the question. So if it shows a rectangle and he ends up putting something that's not quite a rectangle or has an build out on it, does that matter?
Well, the building envelope is an area where you're going to locate that building. It's not the
Within.
footprint.
Within? Does that make?
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to get clear on that.
Okay.
All right, I got it. I don't have any other things to add. And part of Brian's due diligence was to prepare a curriculum that I think he should go over, and just so you can see the breadth of what we're talking about with this. I think it's an exciting project, so.
Is it, maybe a question, is this going to provide new information?
No, it was required by my staff as part of the conditions of approval. So it's submitted in your packet. If you've read it, then it's up to you if you want to ask some questions.
What's the pleasure of the commission? Do you want to hear the presentation? Do you feel like you've read it?
I don't have any questions regarding it after reading it. I'd like to hear Brian, if
Okay.
that's okay, because I do have a question.
Okay. Sounds like you got a question coming. Could you, again, for the record, state your name and address, please?
Yes, Brian Schaefer, 13526 Highway 55, McCall.
Thank you. Floor is yours.
And specifically, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. What would you like me to?
Oh, I would just love to hear you present on it.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, it's something that seems to be gaining a tremendous amount of steam. There's a distinct need and desire for an opportunity for folks to learn a new craft. And we're finding in the trades that there's the generations are retiring and dying and so on, and there really aren't many. I'm not going to say there aren't any, but there really aren't very many young people, or even people that may be not so young, that want to change positions, or maybe they've lost their position somewhere and want to learn a new craft. And the amount of enthusiasm when I explain our proposed curriculum to them is amazing. And one of the reasons for that is that it's not just how to notch a log or cut a mortise and tenon in a timber frame. It's more broad-based. And it goes back to something that I noticed over the last 40 years in this business is that prior to the recreational markets primarily in the Mountain West, but not just Mountain West, even the East Coast, being discovered as high-end recreational properties. We're talking about mostly in the 80s and 90s that discovery began. When someone wanted a custom home built, they would go to an architect, not a contractor. And the architect would work as the owner's agent through design, planning, budgeting, and construction, and review the process, the construction process, and approve. And the contractor submitted their monthly invoices to the architect for approval on the owner's behalf. And that went away over the years. And contractors became the ones that were in charge. And there are some very, very good contractors. There are also some that aren't so good, that make decisions based on their own interest. So our intent is to not provide just specifically a log and timber apprenticeship program, but more of a master builder program. 60+% of the curriculum will be about not only fitting of logs and timbers, but wood selection and how to utilize them, but reading plans, understanding engineering, excavations, site placement, foundation, erosion control, and all the way through the basics of plumbing, electrical, HVAC, roofing, foundations, so that when this builder, after an 18-month program, will at least be able to be in the room and speak the language to the other subtrades, understand where plumbing vents need to be, understand that the building should probably be higher than the ground around it, basics like that, not just logs and timbers. And so we've got a number of experienced tradespeople that are interested in coming in and being a part of that teaching process. So we're pretty excited about it.
Thank you.
Just had one question for you, Brian. Do you have any plans to work with the school districts for like high school students to be able to come in and kind of access some of what you're doing in this program?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'd kind of forgotten about that, actually. They're actually talking to us about having the shop program that the kids build a building or more, one or more buildings a year. And the shop teacher is really interested in bringing them out to the site and having them learn how to build log buildings. And one of I think he's the superintendent, I can't remember. We've been playing phone tag, but he's reached out when he heard about the shop teacher's idea about the concept of possibly having the students build some smaller, not so much tiny homes, slightly bigger than that, on school property to help attract new teachers. So the high school is very excited about it.
Good. That's great.
Anything else?
Other questions? Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
I feel like you've captured all of the additions for the plat. Okay.
I think I have. No, thank you.
Is there, what's the commission's pleasure on?
Oh, I'm
motion?
sorry. The irrigation pipe on lot 4, they didn't address that.
Mr. Frank, would you like to address that?
I will. That pipe will be abandoned. It's not in use now. And he has control of it.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move that we recommend for approval CUP 22-06 Schaefer's subdivision final plat with the stated conditions of approval in addition to the following conditions of approval, that changes will be made to the final plat as requested by the Valley County Cadastral Specialist, and that the following requirements for notes on the final plat will be included: 10-3-3-2-F3, which will show different uses shaded or crosshatched, and that should be tied into the development agreement, as well as 10-3-3-2-F4
that show building envelopes and surrounding land use and states that surrounding land uses are subject to change. Also, that we will need to see approval for the individual wells and that they're adequate for the lot land uses.
Tank on plat, and then Corps of Engineer letter of approval for the jurisdictional determinations.
In addition to those two.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion is passed. Okay. Have a request for a break? I would agree with that.
Are you supposed to do that? No, there is no.
We're going to take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll get onto our agenda.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
And Mike Slide.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order again from our recess. We are now moving on to our last item in the old business section of our agenda. Conditional use permit 22-34 Shoemaker Donnelly Storage. We have had the hearing on this item back in October. And Cindy, you got to remind me, has there been rebuttal?
You need to remove it from the table.
Oh,
and
that's
then-
right.
Yeah.
Requires a 2/3 vote. So we need a motion to remove conditional use permit 2234 from the table.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion about removal of the item from the table? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes with greater than 2/3 majority. Conditional use permit 2234 Shoemaker Donnelly Storage is now on the table or on the agenda.
So,
Is there any, let me just refresh this because we have a couple members that were not here during the last meeting. Is there any conflict or ex parte contact on this application?
No, and I would like to note on the record that I did watch the hearing online, so I am up to date.
Okay, all right, thank you. Cindy, remind me where we were on the,
the commission deliberated and then agreed that more information was needed.
okay,
Let's see, commission deliberated and agreed that more information is needed. Chairman Thompson stated storage units are needed, however, there are issues and unknowns. Commissioner Freeman is particularly concerned about water runoff, flow amounts, and filtration. And let's see, the motion, what you desired more time to review the application, more information is requested from the applicant, including traffic impact study, civil engineering plan, and a proposed road development agreement. Commissioner Freeman seconded the motion, motion carried unanimously.
okay,
And then I'll go through the staff report.
okay. Cindy, if you would update us, and I know we have some exhibits that have been submitted since.
This is the location of the proposal. There's State Highway 55, Old State Road, and then this is Eagle Lane. The applicant is Jeff Hatch with Hatch Design Architect. The owner is Craig Shoemaker. Jeff Hatch is requesting approval of the conditional use permit to construct a public self-storage facility. The public hearing was held on October 20th, 2022. The matter was tabled to December 8th. The commission requested more information from the applicant, including traffic impact study, civil engineering plan, and a proposed road development agreement. The applicant submitted additional information on November 28th, which included a revised plan, revised preliminary grading plan, artist renderings, emails between applicant's representative and Idaho Transportation Department, and then the email chain between Jeff Hatch and Dwight Stutzman. Mr. Stutzman stated the design looks good to him. A properly noticed public hearing was held on October 20th and tabled to December 8th. Additional legal notice was posted in the Star News on November 17th and November 23rd. Additional comments received. Valley County Road Superintendent referred to a comment made about a culvert on Creekside Court. The culvert is rusted out and is scheduled for replacement in 2023. The email chain between Jeff Hatch and Dwight Stutzman was included, and Mr. Stutzman had stated the design looks good, and that was dated September 26th, November 14th, and November 15th. Staff comments, the commission should follow the process in Idaho State statute for approvals or denials. 676519-5 states whenever a governing board or zoning or planning and zoning commission grants or denies an application, it shall specify the ordinance and standards used in evaluating the application, the reasons for approval or denial, and the actions, if any, that the applicant could take to obtain approval. The conditions of approval have not changed from what was originally approved. And then additional correspondence received is Exhibit 1, where the additional information was transmitted to us with the latest site and landscape plans. Building D is now a canopy versus being fully enclosed. I'll let the applicant take care of all of that. I think they changed the location of the access point, upgraded the landscape plan, and then anyway, that kind of ends the staff report, and I'll let the applicant present their presentation. I do have the visual aids if you don't have questions.
Are there any questions for Cinda at this time? And Cinda, I want to make sure that we are handling this correct way. If we have the applicant back up, what is the need to reopen the hearing?
Well, since you already deliberated, make sure the hearing is open. And then you have to take testimony. My recommendation is that you take testimony from the public
So open the
for on
hearing
new
again.
matters only.
Okay, all right.
It's not a new hearing. They have the ability to testify on things that have
The
been
new
changed.
information that was requested. Okay, all right. So at this point in time, if there are no questions for staff, we'll go ahead and have the applicant come forward and make their presentation on the new information that was requested.
Jeff Hatch with Hatch Design Architecture. Our address is 200 West 36th Street, Boise, Idaho. Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for your consideration of our conditional use application this evening. Next slide, Cinda. From the neighborhood comments and also the commission comments, I just want to do a kind of a brief recap on the revised site plan. From meeting with several of the neighbors, there was kind of an overarching concern with access off of Eagle Lane, which we had previously proposed on our south front. And so we were able to eliminate that and shift our primary entrance to the east. In doing so, we followed up with Josh Nopens with Idaho Department of Transportation and ran the concept by them. In doing so, they requested that we close a portion of Old State Street that kind of created an awkward wedge access onto Highway 55, which ITD found rather undesirable and dangerous. And they wanted us to maintain the existing 90-degree access, which is also there, and take our access off of that. And as one of the exhibits, we do have his essential blessing saying that we could proceed with an application. And through that application process, the evaluation of the approach, any decel lane, any other street and roadway improvements would be handled by ITD's recommendations. In addition to that, we met with the city of Donley, and Donley had a couple considerations which were complementary to the neighbors and also ITD's request, in that where we closed off that Old State Street is kind of a open area that could be utilized in the future for a potential entry sign into Donley, which, talking with Allison, was a favorable option. And that's something that could be discussed either with the city or with the ITD through a license agreement when the determination of either relocating the existing sign or creating a new sign comes to pass. Next slide. Commission and some of the public testimony also had concerns about stormwater and snow retention. So we did have our civil engineer put together a grading and drainage plan, evaluating and determining where we can store our stormwater retention away from those wetlands areas, which was a concern. Originally, they had some conceptual drainage towards the west. From some of the additional comments, we have that kind of existing native culvert, and so we had them revise that again, shifting everything to the south and to the east, as far away from that wetlands area, both delineated and surveyed, as well as publicly testified. In addition, From our previous projects in Donley, they typically like 10% snow storage. We're currently at 13% on the actual ground. And with our design, we intend to store the majority of the snow on the buildings themselves. They'll be engineered to do so. And in that capacity, we were at about 48%, which eliminates a lot of the need to push snow off of the drive lanes. Next slide, Cinda. We also reduced some of the quantity of the lights, and those will be on timers so that they don't stay on 24 hours a day. The consideration that for the office space, we'll probably have a security light that would, as people come to the facility, would turn on. That does face north and is screened from all the neighbors. So we feel that would be appropriate. Next slide. Meeting with the City of Donley and also many of the considerations from the neighbors about landscaping, both Donley and comments and the neighbors. We wanted to fulfill that scenic corridor by landscaping the full frontage on the east along the highway. We also included some additional landscaping on the northern side of the facility to screen that from the neighbors, as well as on the western side to screen some of the adjacent neighbors who had requested that. And then on the south and east, incorporating the landscaping so that we still have a substantial buffer to our neighbors, but maintain that stormwater retention basin area. The other consideration with Donley's, they wanted us to make sure that these plantings were preserving views of the mountains and maintaining an elevation and grade that could ensure that we're able to enjoy that from a public setting.
Okay.
Probably easier to describe here, so I'm going to approach the screen for a sec.
We're not going to be able to, you have to speak up so that
I know I'm really quiet too. So this canopy D, our intention is both on the north and the south face of that building. I'll come back over here so people can hear me. At that location where we are proposing a canopy, the north and south faces of that will still be a physical structure that looks like a building. It would only be open on the east and west sides, internal to our site. We don't have that as one of the external buildings. And the purpose for that is, in looking at our market study, having a canopy on this product or this project seemed to be important. And so we wanted to propose that. Next slide, Cinda. That didn't change, so next slide. From the feedback from the neighbors, we also wanted to update our elevations. And so we stick to something that's more complementary to the mountains and the colors that we had there. So more of the grays and some blues. And for the highway presence, we have something that looks more like a retail commercial building versus an industrial product. Next slide, Cinda. So this would be our view from that new entry off of Old State Street into the facility. Next slide. And this would be a view from the parking lot. And next slide. This would be a slightly aerial view across the way from the north side of Highway 55. Next slide. So I'm following up with the city, recognizing the reconfiguration of the intersection of Highway 55 and Old State Street as an opportunity for a future monument sign, as well as from ITD's perspective, increasing safety as access onto that highway, and also working with them to preserve the mountain views to the west. As far as runoff, water quality, and snow water, Even our snow storage, which we have on the northwestern side of our site, has a curb and gutter that is guttering everything back down to our southern basin. So all of our stormwater and snow melt is going as far away from the wetlands area as we can design it. With that, we have about 13% on site and 48%, or almost half of our hardscape, can be dedicated towards snow storage. Next slide. This is just the highlighted documentation from ITD summarizing that the site plan works for them and we can submit for an access permit for the balance of their determination. And following slide, this is just a brief highlight of some of the neighbor comments that we've gathered over the last month, 2 months. So the overarching concern with access off of Eagle Lane, so we no longer have that, and have also improved that old State 55 intersection. We have the lighting that would be dark sky compliant. Our site screening from the west, we're 500 feet. From our Highway 55 side, 120 feet with dense landscaping. Again, improving the building design. And then with concerns for traffic, we feel that, especially with the comments from ITD, that has addressed a substantial amount of those concerns. Next slide. We did follow up with Dwight Stutzman and a couple of the other neighbors. Dwight's on New Jersey time, so I think I called him at like 3 a.m. our time because that's when he was available. But it's like 8 o'clock their time or something. But really nice gentleman, loves Donley and wants to retire here. He's over in Jersey doing some greenhouses for Costco poinsettias. And when he's done, he's like, I got 2 more to do. Then I want to move to Donley and retire. And so in talking with him, especially with some of the sensitivities to keeping the buildings really low and also adding the additional landscape buffering, he was satisfied with the design. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
I have a question. On average, how often would a person that has a storage unit come in and see their, visit their storage unit or get something out of it? Or
So there's 2 considerations with that, Commissioner Caldwell. The majority of the product that we have on this are very large RV boat storage, so it's recreational storage versus a traditional mini storage where maybe you're accessing something on a weekly basis. This would be accessed as often as folks are able to get out to the lake or get out to their recreational destinations. So if you have a boat, you're obviously not accessing that in the winter. And if you have snowmobiles, you're not accessing those in the summer months. So seasonally, it would be, the majority of your traffic would be on the weekends.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for the applicant this time?
Thank you for your time.
Hearing none, we'll go ahead and reopen the public hearing for input on the application and the new information, limited to that new information. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, is there anyone that would like to speak who is undecided about the application? Seeing none, is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to the application? Just come to the mic and state your name and address, please.
Name is Mike Birkenman. I reside at 20 Creekside Court, Donley, Idaho. If you look at that image right there, my property is right there. Correct, right there. I do applaud Shoemaker and the architect for redesigning the entrance off of Eagle Lane. That is a dead-end street, and does not really get a lot of access from the county. Jeff and his crew do a great job, but in the wintertime, that gets pretty heavy, so I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that they want to enhance with the landscaping improvements. My number one concern is I have not seen how they are addressing the drainage from the property south of Eagle Lane that drains into that property. They've addressed the drainage from Highway 55 on the east side, which is the main drainage through the wetlands there, but there is a culvert that runs under Eagle Lane that drains into that property off of the south 18 acres on Eagle Lane. I have some concerns on how they're going to do that. My concern is if they block that off or close that natural drainage there, that's going to push the water drainage to the lower level of Eagle Lane and Creekside Court, which is going to cause flooding. We have flooding in the springtime already on Eagle Lane due to the drainage of those two properties. The other drainage off of the south side is over in the southwest corner, which is going to cause issues on the lower part of Eagle Lane because it's lower. My other concern is the storage capacity of snow that they're talking about. I applaud them for building the buildings to support the weight of the snow, but you're still going to have to store snow and you're still going to have to move it. You get a lot of drifting through there, so it's not uncommon to have 3, 4 foot, 5 foot drifts in there. If they're going to put a berm in there, that could create some serious concerns in the springtime with drainage off of Eagle Lane down into Creekside, as well as Highway 55, because there's standing water on all three sides of that property year-round. My other concern is the drainage off of that property goes directly into Boulder Creek and then directly into Lake Cascade Reservoir. How are they going to control the contaminants that are going to be coming out of those buildings and or the traffic of the vehicles? Thank you so much for your time.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? If you'd come to the microphone and state your name and address, please.
Claude Giordana, 177 Eagle Lane. I'm going to be probably the closest property to the development. Listening to him talk about the drainage, I have a real issue with the drainage too. That creek that all that their water is going to go through goes right through the center of my property. It already floods. If I have any more flooding, it's going to take a large piece of my property if we have more water. And it's already an issue, and I'm really worried about how much more water that's going to affect and going right through the center of my property. My other issue would be still there. I like how they're doing their berms and they're hiding stuff off of Eagle Lane, our residential neighborhood. But where my house sits, I will still look right through their emergency access. I'll be looking, my front windows, front door is still going to be looking right into RV storage. And I'm going to be looking right at RVs, snowmobiles, and it's going to look like a parking lot out of my front door. My third issue is traffic. The corner, I applaud them for moving the off of Eagle Lane. But that corner, last Friday, I sat for 7 minutes trying to get out. It was solid traffic down there. You start adding RVs, trailers, and everything right on the corner of that intersection. That is already probably our most dangerous intersection we have in Valley County. And to add all that extra traffic, and it's not just cars, it's motorhomes, it's going to be trailers, it's going to be boats, it's going to be everything coming out of there and turning immediately onto Old State Highway and 55 is going to be a traffic issue and a danger issue. I travel that. I'm on it multiple times every single day, and it scares me now. So I can't imagine what it's going to be like with all this extra traffic coming right into that intersection. That's my main concerns on the project. I like that they reduced the lighting, but I'm still going to see it. It's coming. It's right in my front door. The lot next to me, I own two. So I own 177 Eagle Lane and 247 Eagle Lane, the lot next to the other one, which is for my kids to build their home and my grandkids and everything. And I just don't see it as a good thing for our community at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
you.
Are there other people that would like to speak in opposition? Come to the microphone and state your name and address, please.
Chair, my name is Larry Shake. I live at 1612 South Sampson Trail in McCall. And I was going to try to be quiet today, but it just kind of keeps driving. One of my pet peeves about planning and zoning is that decisions that you all make, decisions that developers or whoever ends up buying property around somebody else, the decisions they make impact people's property values. This gentleman right here that owns the property that's going to look right out at the emergency
Mr. Shake, could
exit.
you keep your comments directed towards the
Sure.
additional information that was presented tonight on this application only?
Okay, I think that they changed the entrance and
You're pushing the bounds.
they're changing the entrances and some of the things that that was on the original plat, the way I understand it, the original plan. But I want to emphasize on the fact that I think that developers should have to buy out or compensate people that they impact their property values on. I'll just leave it at that. But we shouldn't, as individuals in the community, lose our values for somebody else to make money.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition to the application? Come to the microphone and state your name and address, please.
Joey Petrie, 225 Valley Springs Road, McCall. I would like to compliment the developers for the changes they had made. I think they were needed for sure. I do still hold to the fact that the water quality will be altered, and I'd really like to see a study done on the effects it would have on Cascade Reservoir, because there's so much surface area with the storage units that it's not getting unfiltered natural drainage going into the soil, and there will be more contaminants. I'll just echo the other opponent's concerns about that, and I'd like to see studies done on the quality of the water down the road, what's going to happen here years from now, because we're in a global crisis, and I think we all should take responsibility for whatever it is we do. We all live on this planet, and we all have responsibility to take care of what we do have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition to the applications, the new information? Hearing none, we'll have the applicant for a time of rebuttal and close the public hearing.
Several of the neighbors expressed some concerns for the drainage, so I did want to give you as much of an update as we do have with our progress with the Army Corps of Engineers. The report is finished. It is being finally reviewed. They apologize for the delays. They're still backlogged, and they were not able to provide that for this meeting. But she did say, I can provide some supplemental information in the meantime. And she proceeds with basically two considerations. One consideration would be the nationwide permit 39, which we're familiar with for wetlands. But in her summary, she also provides the option that this may end up being a project that goes to the Idaho Department of Environmental Qualities. She wouldn't give us that option if it wasn't an option in the report, which leads me to say that at least from their report, their concern is less concerning that this needs to go under a nationwide 39 permit It may just be a local state reviewed application in the end. There were some additional concerns about snow storage, and if you go back to our stormwater retention plan, we had a couple of considerations that I'd like to bring to the commission's attention. So in where we have our snow storage, which is on the west, all of that is being drained back to our southern portion. So we would have a physical structure hardscape separating our snow storage from the wetlands area. In addition, right now on our southeastern corner, we still have a substantial amount of land that's not dedicated to stormwater retention. If there is additional fugitive stormwater that is expressed during our permitting phase, we'd be more than happy to enlarge a swale that would be able to store some of the additional adjacent property stormwater that's coming onto the site naturally and be able to manage that as well on top of our own. And we do have capacity to do that. That's something that could be evaluated from our civil engineer and the information that we gain back from the Army Corps of Engineers. So I think that would, with the work we're doing with the Army Corps of Engineers or potentially the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, that should address the majority of the concerns for contaminants. As far as access, we feel that our permit with ITD and the requirements that will go with that will evaluate both the turning movements and also the use to ensure if there needs to be any additional improvements to that roadway that's addressed. And then the concern from our neighbor to the south about his access and views, Mr. Schumacher is more than happy to discuss that with Todd, and if it's up to the commission, some leniency on where that emergency access goes. That gets adjusted because it's more complementary to our neighbor. We'd be more than happy to make that concession. We have requested a site plan of that dwelling for about a month and a half and have not seen it. Otherwise, we probably would have been more proactive about trying to address that concern. But we're more than happy to engage him even tonight to be able to address that more appropriately, because we want to be a good neighbor. With that, I'll stand for any additional questions from the commission.
Is there any questions for Mr. Hatch? And maybe prior to that, I just have one question for the security in the back of the room. Is the door still open to the building? This is a public hearing. Say it again. We just need to, if people want to show up, they need to have access into the building. So, all right. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Shoemaker? Sorry.
One of the gentlemen had mentioned a culvert
Mr. Hatch.
that goes across the road. Is that going to remain in there, or will it not be there because it won't be needed anymore? Or can you address his concern on that?
I believe the culvert that he's discussing is on the southwestern portion, which is where we originally had stormwater retention, but I brought that back to the civil engineer and said, no, there's a natural culvert in that area that needs to be addressed. So we took the stormwater retention out of that, moved everything further to the east. You do see a culvert where our roadway goes, so that's delineated on that civil drainage plan. And so we would be intending to maintain the natural drainage into that wetlands as it currently is, but it would be culverted for that roadway. Again, the civil engineer has curb and gutter on both sides of that, funneling it back into our stormwater. So even at that bridge location, none of the oils and the vehicular traffic is getting into that wetlands. That's not the intent.
So there's a grease trap, is that what you said?
We can certainly install one, but the sand windows of the drainage detail, which is down there, would be how they satisfy that.
Other question? Excuse me. Other question for Mr. Hatch. If not, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bring it back to the commission for deliberations. Thoughts, compatibilities. I think I'd draw your attention back to the original staff compatibility
what?
rating.
The original what?
Compatibility rating.
Okay.
I can pull it up if you guys don't have it in front of you. Right. I think one of the things that we were wrestling with at the last meeting on this is, granted, the applicant has made some efforts in trying to do different things with access. That was one of the things that we wanted more information on, landscaping, things like that. But I think our charge as a planning and zoning commission is looking at the proposed use of the land, and is the proposed use actually compatible with the area in which it's being proposed. And when I go through the compatibility rating, or staff's compatibility rating, on the first three questions is actually a -9. I came up with the same numbers when I did it. I was at -9. The overall, once you go through the rest of the questions and you add it all up, I come out with a -3. Staff is a +5. So I think those are the considerations. I do appreciate the applicant's efforts in trying to address some of the concerns, but I don't know that that's completely our charge. Our charge here is to follow the ordinances and the Land Use Planning Act, which designates what the proposed use is for the land, so. Other thoughts?
I do like the layout. Excuse me. I do like the layout a lot better with the access off the highway, the way it's shielded, how they've addressed drainage considerably. And then in my mind, having grown up living right next to the highway, I would think that having a storage unit between you and the highway would make it a lot quieter. So as far as that, it could be a bonus to the houses around there because it's going to absorb a lot of the sound from the highway. And we all know how much traffic there is on the highway and how noisy it is in the summertime. So just kind of my 2 cents on that.
Other thoughts, considerations, deliberations?
I liked what the applicant came back with. I think the project does mitigate a lot of the impacts to the surrounding properties, especially with their landscaping. There's a lot of landscaping that's going in. I agree with Commissioner Freeman that it'll probably block some of the sound. And I think possibly it would be that storage units might actually be better than single-family residentials in terms of water quality and traffic and the impacts to the type of property that it is. Sure, there may be some traffic in and out on weekends, but you're not looking at several septic systems, building lots of different house sites, landscaping with fertilizing, that type of thing. It follows the ordinances, and so although the compatibility is maybe negative on the top, I think that they have mitigated a lot of that. And I would like to note that even on the stormwater and the drainage, that they would still have to work with the Valley County engineer. And so there's some local control with that as well before this was able to move forward.
I agree. I mean, I think this is a really tricky one. But I agree. I think that traffic and some of the environmental impacts of this being residential probably outweigh what's being proposed. And if we had zoning at the county level, which we do not, this would be kind of an ideal spot for something other than residential being right on the highway. And I think that's important to remember even as we're doing our compatibility rating, that this, in the future, this would be kind of an ideal place potentially for some type of commercial. I know this is incredibly needed in our area. And as far as speaking to safety, these boats and RVs are just being moved rapidly all the time on our highways and roads because they're not being stored somewhere like this. So I think there's some negatives and positives to all these things. I think that there's a lot of work to be done on the engineering side, the civil side of things, just to make sure that other properties are not negatively impacted by your stormwater, because all of us have seen a lot of civil engineering that looked really good, not quite fit. So as long as that's kind of an ongoing process with neighbors, I would say that it's going to be a necessity to have that be an ongoing process with neighbors. But I really appreciate the changes that the applicant made to this application. They did a lot of work, and I think that intersection from Old State Highway onto Highway 55 is so dangerous. So working with ITD to make it safer, I think, is a hugely positive thing, especially as that whole area that accesses all these residential areas off Old State Road is just growing incredibly. There's more and more people all the time. So yeah, I guess those are my thoughts.
Any other thoughts?
If you're going to approve this, so for enforcement capabilities, I would recommend that you change condition of approval number 16 about the deadline for landscaping to something like within 1 year of completion of the first structure, or something besides less than a year from now, because they're going to want to get all of their engineering, they're going to want to get all of their approvals from ITD, Corps of Engineers, and that might not be a really realistic deadline because they're going to have to put in all their drainage and stuff.
Well, I'm going to weigh in here on this because I think that there's a reason why it has a negative compatibility rating from staff. I think there's a reason why it's requiring so much landscaping to hide something that doesn't belong where it's proposed. And I'm going to take us to our comp plan in a couple different locations where we talk about property rights of neighboring properties. In Chapter 1, we talk about open spaces and maintaining the rural atmosphere of Valley County. And I can tell you, I've lived here all my life. That spot floods probably at least once every 10 years. That is a significant drainage. That drainage drains ground clear up to Roseberry Road and beyond. I do not believe that, yes, there's probably a demand for storage units in Valley County. And I agree with Commissioner Childs' observation that there is more of that needed. We also have the Highway 55 corridor, scenic byway that we're supposed to be keeping in mind. The testimony from the individuals in the October meeting and tonight has been 100% in opposition. That tells us something about compatibility ratings of proposals. I applaud the idea and the motivation to try to get storage in Valley County, but I do not believe this is the right spot for a couple. The reasons I've stated, plus the traffic congestion on Highway 55, we've already said is completely dangerous, and now they've moved it into a more dangerous spot than what it was. So those are my opinions. I will not be supporting this application. It may pass, but that's fine. So what is your pleasure, commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to move that we approve CUP 22-34 Shoemaker Donley storage with the stated conditions of approval, with the change to number 16, where landscaping shall be installed within a year of the first structure completion. I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion?
No.
No.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Nay. Motion is passed. And there will be a 10-day appeal period for that anybody can appeal this to the Board of County Commissioners. Alrighty. Next item is we're finally at 8:30 getting to new business. So.
Thought it was going to be short.
I gotta find my agenda. Here it is. Okay, new business. First item we have up tonight is, in fact, this is the only item of new business other than some other items. So this will be the last public hearing that we have. Conditional use permit 22-46 Moody glamping site, or Mowdy, excuse me, Mowdy glamping site. Is there any conflict of interest or ex parte contact?
No.
No.
No. Okay. Cinda, you have a staff report for us.
Okay, the staff report for CUP 22-46 Mowdy glamping site. The applicant is Nancy Mowdy and Kenneth W. Mowdy Life Estate. Property is located at 14078 Farm to Market Road, and it's 73 acres. Nancy Mowdy is requesting approval of a conditional use permit for a camping facility containing 4 tent sites available for rent from June 1st through September 1st annually. The tent sites are on the hill east of the home and a minimum of 350 feet from the eastern property line. Porta potty facilities and the existing bathroom of the residence would be used for toilets and showers. An individual well and septic system exist on the property. Lori, it's okay, we've got this door open. The property is also permitted for CUP 16-11 Mowdy Mountain Festival. This allows a 1-day summer festival and a 3-day Christmas bazaar annually. The approximately 73-acre site is addressed at 14078 Farm to Market Road. The application was submitted on October 17th, 2022. Legal notice was posted in the Star News on November 17th and November 23rd. Potentially affected agencies were notified on November 8th. Property owners within 300 feet of the property line were notified by fact sheet sent November 10th. The site was posted on the property on November 22nd, and it was posted on the Valley County website on November 8th. Agency comments received. Central District Health has no record of a septic permit for this address. They do have a withdrawn application for a septic in 2006. Regardless, the septic system for the home would not be adequately sized to accommodate this use. Garrett DeYoung, McCall Fire and EMS Fire Chief, stated that fire code includes a section regarding the use of tents and membrane structures for commercial use. However, those less than 400 square feet and used for recreational camping purposes are exempt. Tents or membrane structures used for an assembly, occupancy, gathering place, etc. are not. Each campsite shall be addressed and clearly marked along the driveways leading to each site. Neighbor comments received. Marjorie Gravitt owns a house directly across Boulder Lake Road from the proposed site and is opposed. People previously trespassed onto her property. This is a residential quiet area, not a business site. Jim and Carla Hogg, 14123 Jefferson Road, have fire and alcohol-related safety concerns. Noise from campers is also a concern in this rural quiet area. Jim and Judy Balkins' primary residence is 14070 Deerfield Road, bordering the east property line of the proposed site. During the summer and fall of 2022, the applicant placed a portable toilet in the vicinity of the shared property line in order to accommodate visitor overnight tents, vans, camp trailers, and pickup truck campers among the trees in the proximity of their shared fence. If approved, would only 4 tents be allowed in the specified locations? Would the permit allow subsequent property owners or lessee to conduct the activities on the property? What provisions would be required related to fire risks, public safety, and public nuisance or issues? Fire, loose dogs, noise, and unknown visitors in the area are concerns. There are many camping locations in Valley County that are more appropriate for commercial camping. The character of the neighborhood is private, residential, agricultural. They ask that the commissioners take action that retains and protects all property owners' rights to use and enjoy their property. Susan Stepp, 14060 Deerfield, directly southeast, is opposed. Reasons are unsuitable location, area standards, wildlife concerns, wildfire concerns, security, and property evaluations. Patrick and Terry Zach, owners of the adjacent property, are opposed. Concerns include decreased property values due to commercialization of rural setting and disruption of peaceful place, noise, motorized recreation, toys, and road safety. This is a step in expansion to a large-scale event site. Pat Shaw, 14091 Shaw Road, and Benita Gilzau, 199 Hazel Place, are opposed to strangers in the area and the safety of the neighborhood. 7 tents were on the property south of the house last summer and fall. Ken and Carol Shaw, 355 Boulder Lake Road, are concerned about incompatibility with surrounding land use, proximity to closest the neighbor, noise, fire, and trespassing. If approved, they request that the tents be moved westward towards farm to market, out of sight of the neighbors. The request could be tabled until spring when a more accurate representation of the site and proximity to neighbors could be provided. Jem Stepp, 14060 Deerfield Road, is opposed. This is not the right location for this type of activity. Neighbors would be financially harmed. The use would negatively affect neighbors, governmental resources, wildlife, and land management. Campground areas already exist outside of the residential areas. VRBOs are currently a huge problem. Offering glamping is not a right of land ownership. Physical characteristics of the site: it's sloped with scattered trees. Surrounding land use and zoning includes to the north, south, and east, single-family residential with some agricultural on the east, and then to the west is agricultural, and it's actually an exempt property owned by Idaho Park Foundation. This proposal is categorized in Table 9-3-1 as 5 commercial uses, E, recreation business, and I listed various portions of the ordinance for your review. Staff's compatibility rating was a positive 7. Staff comments: this site is within the McCall Fire District. It's not within an irrigation district nor a herd district. It does have water rights from Boulder Irrigation Company. The application is for 4 wall tent sites. However, on November 21st of 2022, the property was advertising 10 tent sites on hipcamp.com. How is gray water handled at the tent sites where shower facilities? What is used for fire protection? How close are the tent sites to the stream? Are people allowed to play in the stream? Do you have rules? Do you allow UTVs and ATVs on site? And will you allow concerts? Proposed conditions of approval 1 through 4 are our typical ones. 5, all lights shall be fully shielded so there's not upward or horizontal projection of the lights. 6, campfires shall be maintained in an established fire ring. Water shovel and or fire extinguishers must be in close proximity. 7, all noxious weeds on the property must be controlled. 8, the site must be kept in a neat and orderly manner. 9, shall clearly post the physical address at the driveway entrance. Noise shall be kept to a minimum between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. 11, no parking allowed in the public road right-of-way or in setback areas. Guests must restrain animals to keep them from trespassing onto neighboring properties. 13, shall obtain approval from Central District Health. 14, cannot hold events such as weddings, large family reunions, dances, concerts, etc. 15, must comply with the payment of sales tax in accordance with Idaho State Code, Chapter 36. And then our standardized condition of approval, that they'll have to enter into a road development agreement with the Board of County Commissioners for impacts to the roads, off-site roads. Since the staff report was completed, we've received additional correspondence. Exhibit 1 is a letter from Marquita Blanton. She has objections to this private campground. There's enough traffic on Farm to Market. We don't need the extra load on law enforcement and their peace of mind. Too much traffic, too fast. And then a letter from Valley Soil and Water Conservation District is Exhibit 2. And they have water quality concerns, porta potties addressing some sanitation issues. However, there's no mention of gray water disposal from dishwashing, hand washing, or bathing water disposal. Use of the resident's bathroom and shower should not be considered in place of a gray water handling system. Also, additional unauthorized septic load is a concern with this application. This particular CUP is not a large water quality threat in and of itself. They're concerned that glamping becomes more and more common. Cumulative effects of improper or inadequate gray water disposal is an issue. And then gray water will be an ongoing issue. And that ends my staff report.
Any questions for Cinda on the staff report?
No.
Cinda, there was one of the letters from agencies, Central District Health, I think it was, talked about the capacity of the existing sewer system. And when I read it, I believe that I read that that would be used, or would there be porta potties?
Yes, in the application, they stated that they would have porta potties and overflow and showers and things would be allowed inside the house. The Central District Health letter said that they don't have any record of the septic and it cannot be used.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for Cinda?
No.
Okay, at this point in time, we'll go to the applicant and make a presentation. You come forward and state your name and address and
Okay, my name's Nancy Mowdy, and my address is 14078 Farm to Market Road. Thanks for hearing me. Most of the way that this has all come across is that I want to put in a big old campground. I don't. I don't even want that for me or anyone around me. But the part with the tents, the canvas tents, most of it is for friends and family. We have a ton of people that come stay at our place because it's a fun place for them to come to. We're the mountains and they're all city people. So the part with the hip camp thing, that actually stemmed from on the other side of our road, or on Farm Market, we have the property that goes from the top of Farm to Market down to almost to the creek. And we always have bicyclers that are camping down there on our property. But in my feeble mind, I kind of thought I would rather have them up where I can see them and know that there's a fire going or know there's whatever. I can't see anything on the other side. And Farm to Market, anyone that knows that road knows we have a ton of bicyclers in the summer. And that really worries me. So I don't want anyone to burn down, you know. So the porta potties, we do put 4 of them out. That's at a cost to me. Part of that is for the people that want to stay there. Part of it's because my husband's 72 years old and he likes to go to the bathroom when he's halfway out in the field to go to the bathroom. You know, he's old. He enjoys having that toilet out there. The toilet that Jim Balkan was talking about, or that place, it's a long ways from our fence line. I mean, probably a good football field and a half farther away. I'm not really sure what he was seeing there, but there was a pickup and camper out there. We only had, all summer long, we had 4 different people staying in what was called the hip camp thing. So, and mostly it was just people off Farm Market. I don't want them on the other side. So the backyard tents, and I don't know, I guess there's not a picture of that. We have we have a big log home, and directly out the back door, there's a sheep herder's tent within like 25 or 30 feet of our back door. There's one over next to the greenhouse, which is probably about 40 or 50 feet. There's one over by the old wood shop, which from our back door is probably about 75 or 80 feet. And then we had one that came in, she was a traveling nurse, and she stayed over by the old ranch house. So, and I'm not sure what to say about the septic, but we have one. So I'm not sure, I don't know, I think if I understood what you said, Cindy, it's not recorded or something. But we do have a septic tank, and actually we have the one that goes to our home, and there's one on the old ranch house where Grandma and Grandpa used to live when they were alive. So there actually is 2 septic tanks there. So I'm not really sure what that means.
They just don't have record of them.
Okay.
So they don't know what the size is.
Yeah, I know, I couldn't tell you that. I'm just a girl, so I couldn't tell you the size of the septic, but there are 2 there. Our house has 3 bathrooms and bathtub showers. There's one on every floor. We do have the CUP for the Mighty Mountain Summer Festival, which is the last Saturday of June every year. And we just finished this last weekend our Mighty Mountain Christmas, which is the first weekend of December every year. And I don't know what to say more than that. It wasn't intended to be a campground at any point. I wouldn't even want that. But I do want to make sure that if someone's staying, I want them to be able to see them. I don't want to have them where I can't see the fires going and stuff. So, but as far as that goes, even if they stayed there, we have water. We have 3 or 4 5-gallon buckets of water sitting right next to the little fire pit, and we give them one. It's actually about an armload of wood, so probably 6 or 8 pieces of wood, and that's. We don't want a lot of people there. We just want to make sure that if they are there, they're safe. So, and the neighbors. I missed something. Trying to think of it all.
Any questions for Nancy at this time?
So are these, the tents are your tents?
Yeah.
So they all match or
They're
kind of a neutral color?
Yeah, they're neutral, kind of tannish brown. We do have one that's, I call it the cavalry tent because it's got that greenish color, like army tent. But it's farther back. And our neighbors to the back can't see them. Oh, that's what it is. So there, Pat Shaw said that there was 7 tents in the backyard. There was 7 pop-up tents, and not for the whole summer. They were there during our Mighty Mountain thing, and after. We had a family that come in with kids, like our families that all had kids. The kids wanted to stay all together in pop-up tents. That's what those were for. They don't live out there. I don't even want to mess with pop-up tents. They blow away and stuff and get ripped. But they were there. So Pat was right. I don't think there was 7, but there was at least 6 there. They didn't stay all summer because I don't want to deal with them. They blow away. So.
How often are you thinking it will be guests in them? Is it going to be like every weekend or just here and there and you're just trying to be legal? Or?
June 1st, the reason we do June 1st to September 1st is that's the nicest part of the year. Obviously we can't do it in the wintertime. And in the summer, we have a lot of people come to visit. I'm not saying that we don't have travelers that want to come and stay in a tent. I'm not saying that because that happens too. But for the main reason and what we did that for was for people that come to see us. I don't have enough room or couches or recliners in the house to put everybody. So, and for them, they think it's kind of fun to sleep in the tent. So
Nancy, you had stated in your presentation that you really didn't want to have it wasn't a camping ground,
I don't want a campground.
But in a sense, you are advertising it as a camping experience.
I did
and
that.
you are doing it for a business. Is that correct?
Well, not so much. I did that because I thought with all the people that were on the road. I thought because if it was like that hip camp, because I seen that on the internet, that it was a way for a cheap place. They just bring their own tent in. I don't have to provide a tent. I don't do anything except I make sure there's water there, a little bit of firewood, a camp place, a fireplace. I don't really, and they do give me $40. I mean, that's, I guess if you're going to call that commercial, but last summer there was only 4 of them. So with that,
Yeah.
it wasn't like a money maker or nothing like that.
Yeah, it's, it is, I mean, you're doing it for a commercial purpose, when you charge for the fee.
I suppose it was mostly for me. It was to pay for the porta potty and the firewood.
Right, okay.
Oh.
Okay, other questions for the applicant at this point in time? No. Okay, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, is there anyone who is undecided about the application that would like to speak? And is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to the application? If you'd come and state your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
It's Ann and Dave McQuaid, and we live at 14042 Deerfield Road, which is about 1,000 feet away from the property. And much of what I have heard, I didn't know my neighbors were doing all this, and it's great. We didn't see the advertisement, saw the sign at the, I guess, road, and that's an issue too. Her road into her property is at a dangerous point. I always feel like she's at the top of just over the lip of the hill that goes down from Farm to Market, where you get down, turn, and on Elo and Boulder Creek. So it's kind of a blind spot as you're coming turns. So if she's gonna start to have a lot of traffic, because I always think, especially with the snow now, I don't like the stretch she's on. It's real steep. And so you either have to maintain, keep going, et cetera. She's not doing it in the winter. It's an issue in the summer. And there's bicyclers on that road. And then if you're going to have campers. And I do see it as a business. And just as other people mentioned, we're very much concerned about the noise because we hear the noise. Pets, dogs, I don't know how many of the campers might have animals that howl, because when one starts, you start to get it. And this is a farming residential area. And we've had, I'm concerned, like, how long could someone stay? It sounds like she's got paid campsites. So could they be there for a month, 2 months? What's the story? Is it a weekend? What's the limit? I don't want the ATVs, the motorcycles that sometimes camping people bring and play. I understand it. I live here. I love it. But these are all things, because it is residential, and this is definitely to us, when we read this, a business. And because she does have kind of business things that go on at various times, can understand that this might be potentially another growth element. But it's one that doesn't belong. And just as people have already mentioned in your letters, is a concern for those of us that live there. And this is just to the county. It would be really nice when you're in a rural area and you say you send out a notice for, I think it was 300 feet, 200 feet?
300.
300. We're probably 1,000 feet. So hadn't realized it. And so I feel like county needs to change that distance to give us a little more notice, because again, we're a county with farming. That's just my thought. But again, it's partly how long is she going to have guests staying is a big point. And then noise, and is it growing?
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition of the application? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back for deliberations. And any other questions to staff at this time?
Doesn't she get to rebut?
Oh, sorry. You do get a rebuttal. Would you like to speak about the concerns? I apologize.
So there was a lot to list out, and I forgot these. So we do have quiet time, 10 to 6, or 10 o'clock at night till in the morning at 6. Nothing can happen. There's no noise. They can't even be out sitting, hanging out by the campfire, nothing. And I don't drink, so I don't allow drinking, drugs, alcohol, none of that kind of stuff can go on there. The pets, I make everything stay on a leash, and they have to stay with them, or I send them away. That's even my own family. They can't bring their dogs and stuff because we run cattle and horses. So that's a big thing to me. I won't let that happen. As far as the noise, I'm not sure because we sleep up there upstairs. There's only been one time ever that I've had to go down, and it was these 2 girls and a guy, and this was like 3 years ago, and they had drank in town, and I told them they had to, and that's really the only time that I've ever had to say anything to them. So I don't really know about that. The animals can't run loose. I don't let that happen. First I asked if there even is animals. My brother brought his 2 dogs, and I made him leave them in the pickup. That's how I am with it, because I don't want the horses or nothing to get ran. So as far as the like ATVs, stuff like that, we can't let them do that on our ground either, because we run cattle and horses. So I'm not really sure where that would come from. If they bring that stuff up, family, friends, people, whatever, as far as I'm concerned, that's what McCall's for. They can go to the lake or they can go around, but I don't want that on our place either, because it would destroy what we have with our horses and cattle. So I don't know what else there is to help you out. But a money thing, the time frame. I've never had anybody stay more than 3 nights ever. So even family, they get sick of me. So I've never.
Keep your,
3
could you
days.
please, I'm sorry, you have to keep your
Okay.
comments directed to us.
I don't even like anything past 3 days. Now, there was this traveling nurse that was from, I think she was from Montana. And she did stay there the month, but she works at St. Luke's, and she had to have a place where she could be. And she had a little girl that was 4 and her husband that was not right. His mind wasn't right. So they had to have a place. They couldn't just move around from place to place. They were there for the month. But they were right next to the old ranch house out behind it. So that is 3 days. I don't like people there longer than 3 days, because after 3 days they think they own the place. So I don't like that. So.
Okay. All right, thank you. Now I will close the public hearing. Bring it back. Cinda, anything? What are your
I was
thoughts?
thinking, I was thinking about, she
yes.
has the December event, or Christmas event that she has beginning of December. And then I was thinking about the end of June event that she has. And I was wondering if she had overnight camping there, and I can't recall.
You do have some people that stay.
I need to check the CUP, because the tents could go up for that event for her family, but they need to be taken down.
In
I don't
that,
believe-
and under that application then for that event, for those events.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a separate CUP. But on here, and that's why I was kind of looking at this HIP camp where she has 10 sites available, and then each site is described, and then people just go on and and add their dates and when they're going to be there. And so that was kind of just that's what I was thinking. I wasn't sure what was going on.
Okay. Okay, we will deliberate. What are your thoughts?
I have a question. I know that we have in the past, like for events and stuff, like wedding venues and whatever, like we've limited them to so many events per year. Is that something that we could do on a camping type setup? Say, only you can only have so many weekends or whatever a year.
That's not what she has proposed here. I mean, you could. You can, but that's not what her application is.
Right.
Her application is for 4 tent sites from beginning of June to the September. If we don't know specifically when those events are taking place, I don't know how we would enforce it. We can't just rely on the neighbors to tell us or go out and look if she's used one of her weekends.
Right.
So that would kind of be an enforcement nightmare.
Just a thought.
Just as a suggestion, if you want, quickly walk through the compatibility if you want, or if you have a preference of what you think you'd like to do, let us know.
I don't really know if there's a need for the compatibility rating. Mine was not a positive number. I think we have had a lot of glamping type applications in the past, and I feel a little bit more comfortable with ones where they're established. There's management that's always there. There's gray water is handled and it's set up a little bit differently. This one I feel like is not compatible with the neighborhood, and I feel like it's a little bit of a dangerous precedent to be setting as well. That's how I feel about this one.
Okay.
I would agree, and I think there's some septic concerns as well. I don't think it's set up for a proper glamping site.
I do like the size of the property though. As far as space, it's not like they're stuffing 4 tents on an acre. I mean, there's 73 acres there. So there is room. But I understand the concerns about sort of on the gray water. The gray water thing is a different subject, but I think that there are ways to make it more appealing, but it takes more effort and more money to address those other concerns. I won't go into those completely. There's a lot to that. So.
I weighed in first last time, so I'll weigh in last this time. I did a compatibility matrix as well. I came up with a -3 overall. I do have concerns about whether it fits within the area. I rely pretty heavily on what Central District Health said in their letter. And I think that's, if you want to source the comp plan, I think it's a health and safety issue that we could certainly look at. And probably retaining the rural atmosphere of the county in Chapter 2, Goal 2. Are there other comments or from the commission? Is there a motion?
If you looked at 67, 65, 19, 5, those 3 questions, if you do choose to deny this, is there anything you believe she could do to change it to get an approval under a separate application? Or is this just not generally acceptable with the neighborhood and the neighboring properties? I mean, can you just kind of address that a little bit, please?
So on the compatibility rating, the first 3 questions, when I total that up, I get a -1 on the first 3. So I don't know that there's any improvements that would help with that compatibility when you look at the proposed use of the land in that setting. I don't know that that can be overcome. That was my observation.
I agree. I think it would be it would be a different application entirely.
More of a defined location, more specifics, better answers to septic and showers and containment of grain water and access points and containment of animals and located away from her neighbors and those types of things.
What the tents look like.
Yeah, absolutely. How to mitigate the impacts to the neighbors.
And I still think we would struggle with the compatibility issue. I still think we would, in this location.
It just isn't acceptable here, period. Just trying to get things on the record.
Right.
Sure.
Is there a motion?
I will motion to deny CUP 22-46.
Is there a second?
I will second it.
It's been moved and seconded to deny application 22-46, Audi clamping sites. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
It appears the ayes have it, and so the motion has passed. It is denied. There is a 10-day appeal period that can be brought to the Board of County Commissioners by anyone. So, all right. Next item on our agenda goes down to the other two that have been withdrawn, and we need to take some action on those, I believe, Cinda, on a conditional use permit 22-47 cryptocurrency site. It has been withdrawn by the applicant. Speak to us about what you would like on the record for this.
Okay. First of all, the applicant had asked me to read into the record a very short letter, so I will. And they state, the PS of the letter addresses some of their more nonsensical claims and is meant to be read lightheartedly, and as we don't hold it against any of our neighbors. So more of a tongue-in-cheek when I get to the PS. To our Valley County neighbors, we are writing this letter to hopefully clarify the intentions behind the recent CUP application and any misunderstandings that may have arisen from it. We have owned property in Valley County for several years now, and we were looking to switch to a plot of land upon which we could build our dream cabin home away from the Treasure Valley, which has been our home for almost 30 years. As is the desire of many people who want to have a quiet retreat in this part of Idaho, we found the lot in question and purchased it in November of 2021. This lot happened to have an existing shop, and as we have had a side business in Bitcoin mining, we thought to utilize it while the rest of the property would be developed. Our business in Bitcoin mining is not our primary or even a substantial source of income for us. We merely believe the Bitcoin fundamentals and its future is a better store of value than inflationary flat currency. This was planned to be a small room in a shop running less than 20 computers with minimal internet impact. We were confident in being able to address noise complaints because we had to reduce noise substantially in our previous location in Garden City. And of course, we don't want it to have any noise disturbing our own peace and quiet in our future home. So we would have taken all precautions to minimize any disturbance. We have had to withdraw our application because of the fire chief recommended substantial upgrades for commercial use, which would not have made sense for us, being that we saw this as much more of a small side business and not a large capital venture. We hope this clarifies our intentions and helps maintain friendly relations with our neighbors. We have lived in Idaho for many years and will continue to do so as we value the serenity and traditional values of Idaho and have no plan on changing these. And then the PS. Regarding some comments made by concerned Valley County residents, we recommend that now is not a great time to mislabel people, especially since nowadays we Ukrainians don't particularly like being labeled as Russians. However, we don't hold it against you. And so with your acceptance of the withdrawal, I would like you to require that they remove the machines from the structure within 30 days, and that we be invited on site for an inspection to assure that.
And that needs to be in the form of a motion?
Yes.
And then one other thing you might want to add to that is that notification should be sent by the prosecuting attorney of Valley County or from this group.
It's just your motion.
Okay,
You
and
know,
then,
we have code compliance.
okay,
We can send it out.
but I would request that it be sent by certified mail
We can
and
do
or
that.
registered, your preference. As long as we have a receipt that's been sent. I think that would be important.
Yep, 30 days from date of receipt. And if they don't pick it up, then 60 days from today. Some people won't pick up certified mail.
Right.
It's kind of not popular these days.
Right.
Okay, so I move that they shut down and remove all equipment within 30 days of the receipt of the certified mail, or if not picked up, within 60 days of today's date.
Inspection?
And that there be an inspection allowed.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions on the motion, discussion on the motion? We got it. All those in favor say aye.
Okay,
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion appears to have passed. It has passed. Letter will be sent. Okay, the next item on our agenda is conditional use permit 22-48, the Wolf RV rental site. That item has also been withdrawn by the applicant.
We have the CIP in the impact area
And
stuff.
on a side note, I was probably going to have to recuse myself because the 10 Keto Trail, Keto is my dog.
Oh. I'm glad you're keeping it light tonight.
I thought I'd lighten the mood since it's kind of late.
It is kind of late. Okay, Cinda. It has been withdrawn. Do you need any action on this one? Okay, because they didn't have any requests or anything. Okay, so we will skip over that one. We're now to other items on our agenda. We have 3 items. Conditional use permit 21-41, the snow bike races, has a request to add an additional race dates, and we need to take action on that. I believe you all have a letter signed by Mr. Ron Dillon. Cinda, any other input?
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself due to a conflict of interest as this being on family-owned property.
Okay, thank you.
Because of high fuel prices and deteriorating economy, they're seeking to run all 3 of their 2023 snow bike races on the property owned by the Davis family and Granite Excavation. They want to move their traditional season opening race from Alpine, Wyoming to Cascade on January 14th, 2023. Continue to run their existing Cascade race on the property on January 28th as originally planned, and then move traditional season ending race from Diamond Lake, Oregon to Cascade on February 11th. Of course, they have the full permission and support of the Davis family to make this happen. We have not done this before and believe that our January 28th event will continue to be quite large with over 1,000 attendees, primarily because it's loosely tied to the Winter Carnival. The other 2 dates will be successful also, but will not be as big as the January 28th event. So, in your consideration of this, they have the CUP for the 1 weekend for this activity, and I don't know if you want to require a public hearing or if you think that we've never had any complaints. But I don't know if that's because it's just 1 weekend out of the year or if there would be complaints if there were 2 more weekends. I don't know if you'd want to approve it, and then if we receive any complaints next year, we would require additional
Right.
public hearing.
Is this a one-time request just for this season?
You could make it that way unless they apply for a permanent change.
I think we should do it one time, and then if they
And if
want to
there's
continue, then
complaints.
next year, they should come back
Okay,
with an update or a
an updated CUP.
update, not to their CUP.
I agree.
But I mean, Yeah, they should be able to do that.
And people seem to really love it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Well, and think what it's gonna do for the economy here as far as food and fuel and motels.
Yep.
And winter glamping, apparently.
So you just concur that, you want to make a motion to the effect that,
Be allowed for the 2023, on the dates listed for this year only, and then
Yep.
if it's ongoing, then they would need to come back for a conditional use permit hearing.
I'll motion that we make this change to CUP 21-41 snow bike race for the 2023 year only. And if they would like to continue to have more dates, that comes back through as an amendment to their original CUP.
Okay. There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion is passed, and those dates will be allowed for this year on a one-time basis. Okay. Mr. Caldwell, welcome back. Next item on our agenda is the 2022 Capital Improvement Program. This would be a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. This is an action item. I think you've all had a chance to look that over. We've discussed this in our work session. Those capital improvement rates have been updated by, what's that entity that did that, Cinda?
but
What was the company that? did-
Parametrics.
Parametrics.
Valley County Engineer.
Thank you. Recommended those increases. I think you've all had a chance to look at those. Is there a discussion or a motion?
There was a proposed motion here too.
There is.
Staff report,
There is.
yes.
Does somebody want to?
Yeah, on the staff report, the proposed motion was the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends the Board of County Commissioners adopt the updated capital improvement program and the 2022 cost estimates, which with allowance of a negotiation contribution to a different CIP area if justifiable. An example, contributions from various CIP areas for the S Bridge.
I move.
Yeah, I second.
Thank you.
Sorry, a little side note here. I would just pass her a note that when you make a motion, you don't say I motion, you say I move. And you don't make the motion, you make cakes. Sorry.
Man, you're gonna get us all whipped into shape.
That's
You're
all right.
Get there.
gonna sound all legal.
There is a motion on the table to adopt the staff draft motion and send it on to the commissioners as a recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? And motion has passed. Okay, number 3, or best action, no, I guess we got more to do. Areas of impact for Cascade, Donley, and McCall. These are also a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners as an action item. We've been discussing these for 3 to 4 work sessions from midsummer through a couple weeks ago. And we have the plan, you've seen the maps in front of you, the additions, actually mostly reductions in impact areas, 1 addition for Cascade, and 1 for McCall actually as well. Is there any other discussion on that? And do we have a draft motion on this one too?
I don't believe,
I didn't
I don't believe
see
there's
one
a
on this
draft
one.
motion. Well, yeah, there's a proposed motion.
I did have one recommendation. And I don't know if you want to consider making it part of this. It would give the county commissioners more flexibility. And that's if, like in the impact area for McCall, that if subdivisions within the impact area do not want to be included, that they can petition to the board to be removed.
Can they do that anyway?
No?
They would have to come through P and Z to petition?
No, the Board of County Commissioners, that as they're doing these negotiations with the city of McCall, that if there are some of these adjacent subdivisions that do not want to be in the impact area, during the negotiation process and the public hearing process for adoption, they can petition to be removed. If everybody in the subdivision doesn't want to be in the impact area, then they can petition, then your motion would say that the board should consider that. Does that make sense? Follow me?
Yep. Yep. I mean, this is a recommendation only.
Yeah.
So they don't have to follow anything we say, but
More of a, by the way, I don't know if you want to do this type of recommendation.
does anybody have a issue with that language?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends the following for the Cascade impact areas, number 1, 2, and 3, the Donley impact area 1 through 5, the McCall impact area 1 and 2, as well as recommend to the Board of County Commissioners that subdivisions within an impact area in petition to be removed.
Okay. Capture it. I thought. It's been moved in second. Is it-
That could also be for any of the impact areas, actually. You want to be consistent with
Would you like to
Cascade,
amend your
Donley, and
motion
McCall.
I
for?
believe I said within an impact area.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you.
Clarifying the motion.
A good clarifying.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, correct? Is there any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? And motion has carried. Okay, we're on to facts and conclusions. CUP 22-37 Tamarack Falls Estates, 2238 Hanson Glamping Site, 2239 Pond Glamping Site, 22-41 Griffin's Multiple Residences, Brutes are 22-42 Brutsman Lodge, 22-43 Longhorn Guest Ranch and Event Venue, 22-44 Bloomfield RV Rental Site, and CUP 22-45 Icola Storage. It's been a busy month.
It was a busy month.
Yes.
Move, we approve
All
the
of those.
facts and conclusions, 22, 37, 38, 39, 41, 42, 43, 44, and 45, and have you sign them?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, and those opposed? Motion has passed, and we are done with our agenda. Is there any other items you want to talk about? I guess there's no other items on the agenda, so is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Moved, is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and second, we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes, we are adjourned.
Amen.
Is the recorder off?
Still on record?